Chapter 1. Stop acting. I shall escort you, but I dare not go. The old jailer slammed the bucket of spoiled food onto the ground, splattering the foul liquid onto his cloth shoe. He did not budge, merely fixating on the black iron door, his throat tightening. Inside is a living demon. I have not yet had my fill of life. I dare not provoke such misfortune. The newly arrived young jailer shrank back slightly, the keys in his grasp jingling anxiously. Old Zhang, you are being overly cowardly. Is he not just a frail, mad scholar? How has he become a living demon? Old Zhang scoffed and spat out phlegm. You know nothing. This madman, to avoid exile, carved inscriptions on the wall from the very first day he arrived. As if possessed, I was right beside him, and I heard every word. He lowered his voice, as if fearing to disturb some foul entity next door. He cursed the heavens. The earth dragon stirs in Longyu. Locusts plague Shandong, and the general of Biting dies suddenly. Have you not heard the news? The mountains of Longyu have collapsed for 300 miles, and the locusts in Shandong are large enough to devour men. If the third omen comes true tonight, the skies of the Tang dynasty may very well collapse under this monster's curse. On the other side of the wall, silence reigned like a grave. Li Yu leaned against the wall, the rotten straw beneath him emanating a nauseating moldy odor. He remained motionless, for even the slightest movement required tremendous effort. From the corner of his eye, a blood-red countdown flickered ominously. Time remaining, 1 hour 29 minutes and 53 seconds. Li Yu extended his bony finger, wiping away the black blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. He was in the late stages of liver cancer. 10 days prior, he had been preparing to end his life in his rented room when an enigmatic system appeared, proclaiming that by signing a contract and traversing to the 8th year of the Tang dynasty to complete tasks, he could accumulate trust and travel between two worlds, prolonging his life and curing his ailment. Who could have anticipated that upon signing the contract, he would open his eyes to find himself in the Tang dynasty? His debut was disastrous, fell directly into the lotus pond of the Imperial Garden, startling Li Ji, who was feeding fish, to the point of soiling himself. According to Tang law, intruding into the inner palace and colliding with a prince warranted immediate execution. As Li Yu was dragged away, he desperately shouted, "I can save Empress Chang's son," which barely earned him a reprieve from the desperate Li heir, who was at his wits' end to save his wife. He had even altered the course of history yet, in his frail state. He would likely perish before even leaving the 30 miles of Chang'an, becoming just another nameless corpse by the roadside. Imprisoned, Li Yu had no choice but to reveal his final trump card. Offline historical materials cached in the Tomato novel app, wagering everything to transform himself from a convict on probation to a condemned prisoner. Calculating the time, the swift horse on urgent mission should have already collapsed on Zhuke Street. The news of Ashina Sunishi's death should now be laid before Li Erfeng on the imperial desk. Li Yu closed his eyes, his mind filled with the image of the legendary emperor in a fit of rage. He was waiting for Li Erfeng, the one who could save his life. Creak, the sound of grinding metal was 100-fold louder than the jingle of keys. As the massive iron door creaked open, pushed by an unseen force, a deep rumble echoed through the narrow corridor, causing dust to cascade down from above, blinding those who stood in its wake. Then came the sound of hurried footsteps. Li Shimin strode in. He was not in his dragon robe, but donned a thin white tunic, his hair disheveled as if roused from sleep. He wielded a broadsword without a scabbard in his hand. He stopped merely 3 feet from Li Yu, his elongated phoenix eyes devoid of emotion, exuding a suffocating chill. Li Yu recognized that gaze. Well, it was akin to a butcher eyeing the meat on the chopping block. This invisible pressure was more terrifying than a roar. Are you a human, a ghost, or a celestial being? Li Shimin's voice was somewhat hoarse, lifting the broadsword slightly, its tip angled toward the ground, poised to strike at any moment. The earth trembled in Longyu, locusts plagued Shandong, and the general of Biting died suddenly. If these 3 events were mere coincidences, it was too chilling. As the emperor, he instinctively felt trepidation towards such unknown forces. Even harboring a tinge of fear within, Li Yu leaned against the wall, and instead of pleading for mercy, he mustered a mocking smile. Cough. Am I a human or a ghost? Does it matter? Your Majesty arrives in the dead of night wielding a sword, fearing that I might utter a curse upon your Tang dynasty? What? The general of the heavenly strategy, who caused rivers of blood at Xuanwu Gate, now believes in fate? Seeking death. All hesitation and probing were forcibly severed by Li Shimin at that moment. The cloud of malice in his eyes transformed into pure, murderous intent. Regardless of whether one was a deity or a ghost, anyone who dared to threaten his empire or challenge his authority would be slain. He did not waste words, stepping forward to tightly grip Li Yu's throat with his left hand like an iron claw, forcefully slamming him against the wall. His right hand flashed the sword, its sharp edge digging into Li Yu's neck. Blood immediately welled up, trickling down the blade. Li Shimin leaned closer to Li Yu, his gaze as cold and fierce as a starving wolf about to feast. Be it a prophecy or a curse, I shall sever your head today. I wish to see how you can curse my Tang dynasty without a head. Whether Ashina Sunishi lives or dies is his fate, just as your wife's ailment is also fate. Silence. Though the unfamiliar term had never crossed Li Shimin's ears, he instantly grasped whom Li Yu referred to. She was his Achilles heel, a tender spot he could not bear to touch. With a violent twist of his wrist, murderous intent surged, and the blade nearly cut into the trachea. Dare to curse the Guanyin maid? I shall now flay you alive. Turn you into minced meat for the dogs. Flay me? Li Yu met Li Shimon's eyes, which were nearly bulging with rage. His expression not one of fear, but rather of disdain and mockery. Li Erfeng, stop acting. In your lifetime, you have slain more people than I have grains of rice seen. If you truly wish to kill, must you utter so many empty words? With great effort, Li Yu raised a hand, gently nudging the blade at his neck with a single finger. You dare not kill me, because, deep down, you know better than anyone that the useless physicians of the Imperial Medical Bureau have no solutions left. Empress Changsun is merely hanging by a thread, waiting for death. You stormed in here like a madman tonight, not to seek judgment. Li Yu locked eyes with Li Shimon, enunciating each word. You have come to plead for my help. Huff, huff. Li Shimon's chest heaved violently, his face flushed crimson, veins throbbing at his temples. The sword in his hand frozen in midair, unable to strike or withdraw. He had been exposed. The mighty Tang Taizong now resembled a child stripped bare, all pretense shattered into fragments. Li Yu keenly seized upon that fleeting moment of panic. Now was the time. Chapter 2. Lier he glanced past Li Shimon, where the old eunuch Wang De and several Imperial guards stood in the shadows, not daring to breathe. If you wish for your wife to survive, then suppress that imperial demeanor of yours. Li Yu coldly stated, dismiss the others. The words to follow can only be heard by you alone. For every additional listener, your wife loses a chance at survival. This is a matter of celestial secrets. Hearing too much can shorten one's life. Li Shimon fixed his gaze on Li Yu, his expression shifting between uncertainty and contemplation. After a prolonged silence, he abruptly turned, speaking coldly to those behind him. Get out. Wang De and the others, having received the imperial command, hurriedly retreated in the dim confines of the cell. Only two men, both panting heavily, remained, accompanied by a flickering oil lamp on the verge of extinguishing. Li Yu leaned against the wall, observing the most powerful man in the Tang dynasty, and boldly spoke. Lier, allow me to speak candidly, I am no demon. I hail from 14 centuries hence, and my veins run with the blood of the Li family. By lineage, I ought to refer to you as my ancestor. Just as Li Shimon was about to dismiss him with scorn, Li Yu, like a rapid-fire machine gun, swiftly delivered his assertions. The queen suffers from what you term cheat illness in my time. It is known as severe asthma complicated by inhalation pneumonia. You need not grasp the significance of this nomenclature. Simply answer me. In the past 10 days, has her condition not worsened abruptly? Is she unable to lie down at night, forced to sit and gasp for breath? Each breath, does it not sound akin to a whistle emanating from her throat? Furthermore, have her nails begun to turn purple, and her lips taken on a bluish hue? Li Shimon's pupils constricted suddenly. Bullseye. Every symptom, even the detail of the purple nails, known only to her closest handmaidens, was an exact match. In that instant, the murderous intent in Li Shimon's eyes diminished significantly. Yet he was still Li Shimon. Gritting his teeth, though his blade had lowered slightly, it remained unsheathed. You, although you speak the truth, the palace is rife with prying eyes, perhaps you have bribed a maid. Skepticism was natural. The mind of an emperor is inherently suspicious. Li Yu sighed internally, recognizing that he must now employ a decisive tactic. Bribe a maid? Li Yu let out a bitter laugh, his gaze becoming ethereal, as if transcending time. Then can I also bribe this secret? In a hushed tone, barely above a whisper, audible only to the two of them, he said, you have already selected the eternal resting place at Mount Jiuzhong, intending to be interred alongside the queen. The name of this tomb was conceived by you alone before a solitary oil lamp, just the night before last. You have likely not yet informed the Ministry of Rites, and even Changsun Wuji remains unaware, does he not? Li Yu fixed his gaze on Li Shimon's expression, now softened from fury to a semblance of hope, as he pronounced each word deliberately, Zhaoling. Upon hearing these two syllables, Li Shimon froze. Zhaoling was indeed the name that had spontaneously surfaced in his mind while sitting alone in the imperial study the night before. No one else in the world could possibly know, unless they were a ghost or a deity, the terror of having his very soul laid bare before another overwhelmed Li Shimon. An infiltrator? Could an infiltrator penetrate the depths of my thoughts? With a clatter, the sword that had accompanied Li Shimon through countless battles slipped from his grasp, clattering onto the filthy ground. His legs weakened, and he staggered back a step, leaning against the iron bars to avoid collapsing. The chaos in his mind swirled from anger to fear, ultimately transforming into a grasping hope, as if clinging to a lifeline. The ragged, blood-stained figure before him was no mere mortal, but rather an inscrutable deity. Given this revelation, Li Yu feebly gestured towards the door, his tone laced with an air of command. Take me to Her Majesty. On Zhuke Street, late at night. Crack, crack. The sound of a whip slicing through the air echoed across the desolate street, as 6 imperial carriages galloped wildly, tearing through the already curfew-bound city of Chang'an. The patrolling guards and military officers felt a sudden gust of wind, and, upon closer inspection, realized it was the emperor's convoy. They had never witnessed his majesty in such a state of disarray, even during the turbulent days of the Turkic incursion. He had maintained his composure. Yet tonight, the carriage sped forth as if pursued by phantoms. Is that his majesty? A patrolling officer quickly saluted, his spear hitting the ground with a resounding thud. But his peripheral vision caught a glimpse of the carriage curtains flapping in the wind. Within the carriage, the formidable Li Shimin, known throughout the realm, now resembled a cornered tiger. Glaring intently at the figure seated before Hema, deaf Rowan mate, Li Shimin was utterly disoriented. Monster, deity, what more do you require? I shall have preparations made. His voice trembled, even his self-reference faltering. He did not comprehend the concept of time travel. Only that anyone capable of traversing the river of time to arrive in the Tang dynasty must be an immortal. Liu reclined on the cushioned seat, his complexion ashen, devoid of blood. Indifferent to Li Shimin's obsequiousness, he closed his eyes, mentally strategizing the forthcoming procedures. The phone still had 5 battery remaining. He needed to return to the modern era swiftly. Every second was a matter of life and death. Whoa! The imperial carriage screeched to a halt before the steps of the Lijiang Hall, the hooves scraping against the bluestone, creating a shower of sparks. Before the carriage had fully come to rest, Li Shimin leapt out, turning to lift Liu. But Wang De, standing nearby, hastily stepped forward to carry him instead. A potent aroma of bitter traditional medicine permeated the grand hall. Dozens of imperial physicians knelt in a circle, deliberating over a warming remedy. Upon seeing the emperor return with a bloodied figure, the chief physician instinctively attempted to intervene. Your Majesty, the queen's health is fragile. She cannot bear the sight of blood. Before Li Shimin could erupt in anger, Liu, still on Wang De's back, interjected. If you cannot treat her, then step aside and do not obstruct my path. The chief physician stood, dumbfounded, pondering the audacity of this death row inmate. Just as he was about to retort, he witnessed Li Shimin kick over the nearby medicinal table. Did you not hear? All of you get out. The physicians, terrified, scrambled to flee the hall. In an instant, the side chamber was left vacant, save for a few close female attendants and Li Shimin. Liu was laid upon a couch adorned with soft brocade. He did not attempt to feel her pulse. Such advanced practices of traditional medicine were beyond his expertise. Instead, he pointed at the eldest female attendant. You come here. Chapter 3. Consultation. The female official knelt on the ground, trembling with trepidation. Listen carefully. I will ask a question, and you shall answer. Do not utter a single falsehood. Liu's voice was soft. Is the phlegm your ladyship coughs up yellow-green, and particularly viscous? The female official paused, instinctively nodding. Yes, yes. Is it true that by the latter half of the night, her temperature rises, and no amount of ice can bring it down? Yes. The tremor in her voice became more pronounced. When she breathes, does it feel as though a heavy stone rests upon her chest, making it difficult to draw in air? Yes. The female official gazed at Liu in terror, as if he were a deity. How could this condemned man, who had not even laid eyes upon her ladyship, be more accurate than the imperial physician who had taken her pulse for half an hour? Li Shimin listened closely. Each response struck him like a hammer to the heart, evoking both pain and a deeper trust in Liu. Enough, Liu gestured, let us proceed inside. As the curtain was drawn aside, there lay the most revered bed in the realm, upon which the Empress Zhongsun, the mother of the Tang dynasty, resembled a dehydrated fish, struggling to part her lips, emitting labored gasps akin to the sound of a saw. Her complexion was ashen, her once plump cheeks now deeply sunken, and the eyes that once brimmed with wisdom were now clouded and dull. The once fiercely Li Shimin, now with reddened eyes, rushed to the bedside, grasping his wife's hand. His voice trembling with desperation and a hint of pleading. I have summoned a divine physician for you, my dear. You shall live. You must live. He turned to Liu, his gaze a husband's final plea to a healer. If you say you can save her, I would willingly trade my life for hers. Liu did not respond. Instead, he withdrew a mobile device from his pocket. The screen illuminated with a ghostly glow. In the dim light of the flickering candles within the Tang Palace, the eerie blue luminescence exuded an unsettling aura. The surrounding palace maids gasped, covering their mouths, their bodies trembling. Li Shimin instinctively placed his hand upon the hilt of his sword, muscles taut. I need to examine her throat and tongue, Liu murmured. Tapping the screen a few times, he activated the camera, turning off the beauty filter. Leaning closer to Empress Zhongsun's face for clarity, he pressed the shutter button. Click. A blinding flash erupted, momentarily enveloping everyone in a veil of white, which, Li Shimin's instinctive reaction erupted. In his mind, this sudden, piercing light was no earthly phenomenon. It was sorcery. It sought to capture the last remnants of the Empress's soul. With a clang, the sword was drawn from its sheath. The tip pointed menacingly at Liu's brow. How dare you collect her soul before my very eyes? I shall slay you. The air in the grand hall plummeted to freezing temperatures. The blade hovered a mere millimeter from Liu's nose, the chill emanating from it palpable. Yet, he neither flinched nor panicked. Calmly, he presented the screen of his mobile device before the blade's tip. On the screen is an extraordinarily high-definition photograph, in which the visage of Empress Zhongsun is vividly discernible. Even the pores of her skin are clearly visible. Though she appears haggard, it is undeniably her. What soul is to be fetched? Liu coldly regarded Li Shimin, his gaze akin to that of one observing a mentally challenged child. Open your eyes and see for yourself. This is a captured image, a celestial technique. The divine physician, unable to see the real person, could only rely on this. Li Shimin was taken aback. He gazed at the small black square, his wife frozen within it. Is that a painting? Where in the world exists such a lifelike depiction? It is as if a person has been encapsulated within. Trembling, he extended his hand, fingertips gently brushing against the cold surface of the glass mirror. It bore no warmth, only an unprecedentedly smooth texture. Is this the Guanyin maid? He glanced back at the Empress, still breathing on the bed, then at the image in his hand. She is still here. Her soul is not lost. Li Shimin felt utterly drained, as though his very backbone had been extracted, and he collapsed onto the footrest. It was a misunderstanding, a mere misunderstanding. System notification, misunderstanding resolved. Achieved. Li Shimin's trust level increased. System reward, temporary time travel permission unlocked. Pain value reduced by 50. Protagonist lifespan extended by 3 days. Current remaining lifespan, 72, 49, 24. In that moment of successfully prolonging life, Li Yu felt as if the sickle that had been entrenched in his liver was finally withdrawn. Breathing became effortless. The excruciating pain that gnawed at his very marrow receded like a tide. He was alive. Taking a deep breath, Li Yu realized that with 3 days added to his lifespan, he need not rush back as if hurrying to be reborn. He could return to the modern world at his leisure, preparing ample antibiotics, a nebulizer, or even enjoying a hot meal. He stowed away his phone and adjusted his tattered prison garb, his movements graceful as if he were donning a dragon robe. He pointed toward the adjacent hall, speaking in a calm tone, "Find me a secluded room. I shall be gone for an hour to retrieve medicine from the future. The roots and barks of the Tang dynasty cannot save the Empress's life. Remember, within this hour, this hall is a forbidden zone. Anyone who enters shall meet their demise. If the celestial energy is severed, even a grand immortal would struggle to save the Empress." Li Shimin now bore no trace of imperial arrogance. He resembled the most loyal gatekeeper, personally standing guard at the door of the hall, eyes reddened as he declared, "I shall personally guard this. Not even a fly shall enter." Li Yu nodded, activating the time travel option in his mind, only to discover it required a minute's countdown. The atmosphere became awkward, and Li Yu, with a steely resolve, maintained his lofty demeanor, standing like a statue. Just as the countdown neared completion, Li Yu shouted toward the door, "Lier, prepare your treasury, await my return." No sooner had the words left his lips than a visible ripple spread through the air, followed by a gentle blue-white halo enveloping Li Yu. There was no smoke, no incantation. Outside, Li Shimin peered through the crack in the door, witnessing this scene with his own eyes. Under his astonished gaze, a living person simply evaporated into thin air. Only a faint, unpleasant odor lingered in the air, a testament to the fact that Li Yu had not bathed in 10 days. Truly, he was a remarkable being. With his palms pressed together, he faced the empty side hall, his lips quivering as he fervently chanted, "Oh, my dear deity, my little ancestor, you must return." Chapter 4. Procurement. As the disorienting sensation of warped time began to dissipate, the first scent to greet Li Yu was no longer the foul stench of the Tang dynasty's prison, but rather the artificial lemon fragrance of a cheap air freshener. Accompanying this were the musty odor of damp wallpaper typical of an old rental, and the enticing aroma of beef bone broth wafting from the eternally open door of the Lanzhou noodle shop downstairs. This melange of scents was far from pleasant. Yet to Li Yu at that moment, it was a fragrance akin to paradise. His knees buckled, and he sank to the luxurious carpet he had purchased for just 9 yuan on Pinduoduo. The dull ache of his kneecap striking the floor sent a jolt through his nerves, yet instead of wincing, he broke into a silent, cracked-lipped smile that shook his entire being. This was the hardness of 2025, the tactile sensation of a civilized world. For one who had spent his days counting heartbeats in the confines of a prison for 8 years during the reign of Jingguan, the 3 days granted by the system felt like the utmost luxury of an emperor. Li Yu remained sprawled on the floor, his instinct for survival and ingrained modern habits compelling him to perform his first action upon returning. He reached for his phone. The domestic smartphone, with its cracked screen, displayed a glaringly red battery icon, indicating a precarious charge of 2. This was not merely a measure of power, it was his lifeline to this magnificent industrial civilization. He crawled toward the bedside, where a white Type-C charging cable hung like a lifeline. His hands trembled with excitement and weakness, and after 3 attempts, he finally heard the heavenly sound of a buzz. The screen illuminated, revealing a lightning bolt icon. Li Yu exhaled a long, heavy breath, feeling as though his spine had been drawn out, collapsing beside the bed. Soon after, an unbearable itch and sticky sensation overcame him. Lowering his gaze, he beheld the prison garb he had worn for a full 10 days in the Tang dynasty. Once a grayish-white linen, it had transformed into a nauseating dark brown, caked with dried blood, unknown stains of spoiled soup, and mud long since desiccated by body heat. Even in the air-conditioned room, the acrid stench assaulted his senses, making him feel nauseous. The need to shed every article of clothing was paramount. Li Yu approached the tattered fabric as if it were radioactive waste, tearing at the rags clinging to his body. The coarse linen rasped against his skin with a sound reminiscent of rustling leaves. With a decisive tug, the garment that had borne witness to the darkest corners of the early Jingguan era of the Tang dynasty was finally liberated from his form. He stood naked before the mirror in the rental, a gaunt figure reflected back at him. His ribs jutted out starkly, resembling a meticulously arranged set of piano keys. His skin was pallid, devoid of color, marred by bruises and the inflamed welts of insect bites. Though the system had activated pain relief, the profound fatigue seeping from his very marrow felt akin to the debilitating effects of a severe cold intertwined with a hangover, rendering even the simple act of lifting a finger arduous. Yet, slumber was not an option. In that alternate realm, Lier awaited him, knife in hand. While a woman revered as the paragon of virtue throughout the ages teetered on the brink of asphyxiation, to rescue Empress Changsun was to salvage his own existence. It served as the cornerstone of his establishment in the Tang dynasty, the fulcrum upon which history would pivot. Li inhaled deeply, forcefully suppressing the urge to succumb to sleep. He plopped down on the edge of his bed, grasping his charging mobile device. Venture outside. He lacked even the strength to descend the stairs. Since he found himself in the year 2025, he would harness the power of this magnificent logistics network to his advantage. His fingers danced swiftly across the shattered screen. He opened Matewan and clicked on the online hospital for respiratory consultations. Patient description: an elderly family member is experiencing a severe asthma attack, accompanied by a lung infection, urgently requiring nebulized medication and potent antibiotics. Mere seconds later, a physician appeared on the other end. Without superfluous dialogue, a brief inquiry ensued, and an electronic prescription was issued. Lee's fingers flew across the search bar, each character representing a life: amoxicillin and clavulanate potassium, 5 boxes. This was the heavy artillery of antibiotics. A nuclear option against ancient bacteria unacquainted with modern medicine. Budesonide inhalation suspension, 3 boxes. The most potent local anti-inflammatory, capable of swiftly suppressing airway hyperreactivity. Terbutaline sulfate nebulization solution, 3 boxes. A bronchodilator, forcefully opening constricted airways. Handheld silent mesh nebulizer, 2 units, with a note: include non-fu batteries, fully charged. After a moment's reflection, he added a few more items: potent ibuprofen sustained-release capsules, montmorillonite powder, iodine swabs, medical surgical masks, and sterile gauze. He placed the order and proceeded to payment. The screen displayed: the delivery rider has accepted the order, expected delivery in 28 minutes. 28 minutes. In the Tang Dynasty, such a duration wouldn't suffice even to brew medicine. Lee switched screens and opened ELE. Me. Location: downstairs at the Lawson convenience store. White rabbit candy, 1 bag. Red Bull, gold can, 1 dozen. 500 milliliters Coca-Cola, plastic bottle, 1 case. Whaleon gluten, 10 packs. Windproof lighter, transparent casing, 1 whole box. Stainless steel fruit knife, complete with sheath, 1 piece. Men's pure cotton underwear, 3 pairs. He could no longer tolerate the discomfort of that abrasive garment. Head Shoulders mint anti-dandruff shampoo, Safeguard soap. He placed the order and completed the payment. The screen indicated: the rider is en route to the store, expected delivery in 25 minutes. Finally, Lee's fingers hovered over the red icon of KFC delivery. His throat involuntarily convulsed, and his mouth suddenly flooded with saliva. A primal, uncontrollable yearning, colloquially known as being ravenously hungry. During those 10 days in the Tang Dynasty, his sustenance had consisted of coarse rice mingled with sand, and water from a well that bore the scent of earth. His palate had long since grown weary of blandness. At this very moment, he craved neither Michelin stars nor exquisite delicacies. He yearned solely for the primal, unrefined assault of grease, carbohydrates, and industrial flavorings. 2 spicy chicken leg burgers, 6 pieces of finger-licking original chicken, with a note specifying: triangular, extra skin, extra oil. 3 servings of French fries, 1 box of Portuguese egg tarts, and a large cup of ice-cold cola, without ice. He placed the order and proceeded to make the payment. The screen displayed: estimated delivery in 40 minutes. Everything was set. Liu tossed his phone onto the bed and dashed into the bathroom. Chapter 5. Return to the Tang Dynasty. The stainless steel showerhead erupted with a torrent of water, the temperature adjusted to a soothing 38 degrees. Steam swiftly enveloping the confined space. As the scalding water cascaded down his spine, washing away the stench of confinement that seemed to linger, Liu pressed his hands against the tiled wall, eyes shut, releasing a blissful moan. Ah, how delightful. I feel rejuvenated. He seized the Lifebuoy soap, vigorously lathering it across his skin as if attempting to scrub away a layer of himself. The foam transformed from gray to black, washed away, only to be reapplied until it resembled a creamy white froth. Next came the Head Shoulders shampoo. The icy mint sensation invigorated his scalp, the refreshing chill penetrating his brain through his pores, instantly reviving his weary consciousness. He lingered in the bathroom for a full 30 minutes. It was only when his skin turned crimson from scrubbing and his fingertips wrinkled from the water that he finally turned off the tap, emerging wrapped in a towel. His phone vibrated vigorously on the bed. Answering it, he heard the slightly hurried voice of the delivery person. Hello? Sir, your 3 deliveries have arrived. They're asked quite a lot, so I've left them at the door. Surprised that it was delivered by 1 person, he replied, thank you. Liu opened the door to find 3 bags stacked like miniature towers at his threshold: a yellow bag from the pharmacy, a blue convenience store bag, and a red KFC bag. These were the primary colors of modern civilization, the very essence that sustained him through the primal wilderness of 400 years ago. He dragged the items inside and locked the door. Sitting cross-legged on the carpet, he did not immediately unpack the medicine or examine the miraculous provisions. Instead, with trembling hands, he tore open the KFC bag. A rich, overpowering aroma of fried chicken, saturated with hot grease, erupted in his small apartment. This scent was not gourmet, but to a man who had been starved for 10 days, it was a fragrance far superior to any perfume. He grasped a piece of original chicken, its golden, crispy skin speckled with black pepper. Crunch. He bit down. The brittle exterior shattered between his teeth, followed by a surge of hot, succulent juice mingling with savory seasoning that danced wildly in his mouth. Liu closed his eyes, almost moved to tears. Grease trickled down his chin, and he could not bring himself to wipe it away. Grabbing a cup of cola, he took a hearty gulp. The cold, carbonated liquid rushed down his throat, the bubbles exploding in his stomach, sweeping away the greasiness, leaving only a refreshing sensation. Now this was a feast fit for a king. What Lier consumed, was that truly food for humans? He devoured the fried chicken and hamburgers with remarkable speed, finishing all within 10 minutes. As his blood sugar surged, his mind began to race once more. Satiated, he donned a fresh set of garments. His hair, still damp, exuded the refreshing scent of mint, mingling with the lingering fragrance of body wash and the fried aroma of Kentucky fried chicken. To a native of the Tang Dynasty, this intricate melange of scents would likely be perceived as an exotic delight. Li Yu stood before the dressing mirror, admiring the revitalized version of himself. The weighty backpack rested heavily on his shoulders, a symbol of the Empress Changsuan's command, as well as his own means of survival in the Tang dynasty. He departed, holding a hamburger in his left hand while shoving the last spicy strip into his mouth with the right, chewing with red oil coating his lips. Then, with the free hand, he raised a middle finger at his reflection in the mirror, as if declaring war on the cruel feudal era. Li Erfeng, I have come to enlighten you with my Colonel Sanders. System command, initiate time travel, target anchor point, 8th year of the Tang Jingguan, side hall of the Liang Palace. The air began to distort violently, the lights of modern civilization stretching and fracturing, ultimately dissolving into nothingness. In the Tang dynasty, in the side hall of the Liang Palace, silence reigned, punctuated only by the sound of dripping water from the eaves. The red candles had burned down significantly, wax pooling atop the bronze candlesticks. Li Shimin paced back and forth, hands clasped behind his back. With each step, the soles of his thick boots thudded against the golden bricks, causing the chief eunuch Wang to feel his heart race in trepidation. After an hour, Li Shimin halted, his bloodshot phoenix eyes fixated on the incense stick, nearly burned out. Only 2 more moments remained. His right hand unconsciously caressed the hilt of his sword, his thumb pressing firmly against the guard. If that person did not return, if this was a ruse, a stalling tactic, or some arcane sorcery he could not comprehend, then Li Shimin would become not only the grieving lover of his beloved Guanyin maid, but also the laughingstock of the entire realm. Wangda, Li Shimin's voice suddenly cut through the tension, icy and resolute. I am here. If the incense burns out before the person arrives, deliver my edict, secure the palace gates. Dig 3 feet into the ground if necessary to unearth that charlatan. I shall make him understand the consequences of deceiving the sovereign. Just as the incense ash trembled on the verge of falling, and Li Shimin's murderous intent simmered to a boil, a sudden hum filled the air. Without warning, a violent ripple surged through the atmosphere, akin to glass shattering under the impact of a bullet. An indescribable sense of pressure enveloped the entire side hall. The once empty chamber transformed as shadows twisted, and the fabric of space was violently torn apart. Then, a figure materialized from thin air. Li Yu had returned. Li Shimin instinctively took a step back, hand instinctively resting on the sword's hilt, yet in the next moment, his motion froze. The ragged, foul-smelling corpse of a prisoner had vanished. In its place stood a young man clad in peculiar attire, emanating an intoxicating aura that captivated Li Shimin's senses. Gone is the previous acrid odor, replaced instead by a refreshing sensation akin to mint, mingled with the essence of rare herbs, combined with an overwhelming, savory aroma that tantalizes the palate with its rich, oily fragrance. The juxtaposition of these 2 distinct scents creates an olfactory explosion in the spice-deprived depths of the Tang dynasty night. Thud. Li Yu dropped his heavy mountaineering pack onto the table, producing a dull thud. He even held a half-eaten, peculiar dough stuffed with meat in his hand. I thought you wouldn't return, Li Shimin remarked, slowly loosening his grip on the hilt of his sword, his palm damp with cold sweat. He endeavored to maintain the dignity of an emperor, yet the tremor in his voice betrayed him. I will return after dinner, a promise kept. Li Yu swallowed the last morsel of food. Let us get to work. We can discuss other matters later. Chapter 6. Ancestor. The Tang dynasty has fallen for over 1,000 years. He did not grant Li Shimin the opportunity to inquire. Instead, he unzipped his backpack and produced several boxes of medicine along with a handheld silent nebulizer. Li Shimin gazed at the exquisitely colorful little boxes and the oddly matte-finished contraption. The words that were about to escape his lips swallowed back. This time, he cast aside the pretense of imperial authority and hastened to follow Li Yu into the inner palace, much like a subordinate carrying bags. Inside the inner palace, the air was stifling. Empress Changsuan's complexion was ashen, each breath sounding like the wheezing of a broken bellows, the rasping noise piercing the stillness. Li Yu remained composed, his movements swift and somewhat brusque. He first grasped a tablet of amoxicillin and clavulinate, expertly breaking the silver foil with a flick of his finger, allowing a pristine white pill to fall into his palm. Warm water. A palace maid promptly offered water. Li Yu directed her to pry open Empress Changsuan's mouth, placing the pill inside, followed by a sip of water to aid her breathing. Next, Li Yu picked up the nebulizer, deftly twisting open the small plastic bottle of budesonide suspension and squeezing the medication into the chamber. After securing the battery, he pressed the switch. Without any smoke or the sound of boiling water, the peculiar device, no larger than a palm, silently expelled a delicate mist as ethereal as clouds. This mist coalesced, yet did not disperse, gently wafting through the air, imbued with a faint medicinal scent. Li Shimin's eyes widened in astonishment, his mouth agape, utterly discomposed. Is this truly an otherworldly technique? No need for boiling or magical incantations, transforming liquid into mist seemingly out of thin air. Could this be the legendary ability to exhale clouds? Watch and remain silent. Li Yu gently placed the mask over Empress Changsun's mouth and nose. With each labored breath, the white mist was drawn deep into her lungs. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Li Shimin gripped the canopy of the bed tightly. A miracle unfolded. The distressing wheezing that had gripped her throat began to abate at a visibly discernible rate. The suffocating sensation that felt like a vice around her throat was receding. The furrowed brow of Empress Changsun gradually relaxed. Her face, previously tinged with a bluish hue from lack of oxygen, began to reveal a hint of color. The breaths became deeper and slower. After a quarter of an hour, she ceased her struggles and cries, succumbing instead to a tranquil, profound slumber. The rise and fall of her chest turned smooth and rhythmic. Li Shimin held his breath, trembling as he extended a finger to touch his wife's nose. Warm, steady, strong. She was improving. Truly improving. Such miraculous abilities indeed. His eyes instantly welled with tears as he turned to Li Yu. And the murderous intent and suspicion that once lingered had vanished, replaced by a burgeoning trust. Enough, Li Yu declared, switching off the nebulizer and carelessly tossing it into his bag as he turned to exit the inner chamber. This was merely a first aid, a means to preserve life. To address the root cause, meticulous nurturing was required. Upon returning to the side hall, Li Yu plopped down into a chair, nonchalantly crossing his legs. Li Shimin followed him out, and at that moment, despite still being clad in his thin garment, his spirit and vitality had returned. He regarded Li Yu with a complex gaze. If his previous belief had been coerced, now it had become an unavoidable truth. Li Yu casually retrieved a bottle of unfinished cold cola from his bag, although it had lost its chill since his arrival. The bottle was still adorned with glistening droplets of water. Here, have this to ease your nerves, he offered, extending the cola. Li Shimin accepted it with both hands. The bottle felt icy to the touch. Yet what astonished him more was the material of the bottle, transparent, pure, devoid of any impurities. The dark liquid inside was clearly visible, continuously bubbling with tiny effervescence. Is this flawless crystal? Li Shimin's voice trembled, its transparency making it priceless in the Tang dynasty. Plastic, Li Yu replied nonchalantly. It's disposable. Drink it and toss it away. Just twist it open and enjoy. Li Shimin cautiously twisted off the cap. With a soft hiss, a puff of white vapor escaped, startling him to the point of nearly dropping the bottle. Is it alive? Is this water alive? That's just gas, Li Yu said, tilting his head back to gulp from his own bottle, letting out a resounding belch. Give it a taste. It's delightful. Li Shimin mimicked him, tentatively taking a sip. The bubbles burst on his tongue, an unprecedented sensation shooting straight to the crown of his head, followed by a rich sweetness. Wow, Li Shimin's eyes widened. This beverage was assertive, stimulating. It was as refreshing as strong liquor, yet sweet as honey. Li Yu smiled softly, choosing not to respond. Li Shimin was utterly speechless. Clutching the bottle of this invaluable elixir, he glanced at his wife peacefully sleeping within the inner chamber. Everything indicated that this person before him did not belong to the mortal realm. Even as an emperor, a son of heaven, he felt a profound reverence in that moment. Li Shimin set down the cola, taking a deep breath, his expression taking on an extraordinary seriousness. He approached Li Yu, gesturing for Wang De to withdraw, even personally shutting the palace door. Then, he procured a chair and sat across from Li Yu, their knees nearly touching. This proximity was perilously intimate. Immortal. Li Shimin gazed intently into Li Yu's eyes, finally voicing the question that had been trapped in his heart for an entire hour. More crucial than a matter of life and death. You saved Guanin's maid. I believe in your abilities. But now, I demand the unvarnished truth. The voice of Li Shimin resonated with a deep authority, imbued with the unique oppression characteristic of an emperor. You previously claimed to hail from 14 centuries hence? Or are you a descendant of the Li lineage? Will the mighty Tang still exist in that distant future? How many generations has my empire endured? The side hall fell into an eerie silence. The flickering candlelight danced momentarily, casting elongated shadows of the two figures. Li Yu gazed upon this timeless emperor, perceiving the ambition lurking in Li Shimin's eyes, as well as the profound fear hidden beneath. Li Yu did not respond immediately. He picked up the bottle of cola, gently shaking it, observing the dark vortex within. Then, he raised his gaze, a meaningful smile gracing his lips, and uttered softly, Ancestor. The Tang has been fallen for over a millennium, and the very soil of Chang'an has been scorched thrice. Chapter 7. A lesson for Li Air. The cola bottle slipped from Li Shimin's grasp, crashing heavily against the golden brick floor, though the plastic vessel did not shatter. The cap burst open, unleashing a cascade of dark, effervescent liquid that flowed freely across the polished surface, inundating Li Shimin's feet. Yet, he remained unmoved. He did not erupt in a fit of rage like a commoner, nor did he collapse like a feeble monarch. He maintained his outstretched hand, frozen in midair. His phoenix eyes, accustomed to the vicissitudes of life, which had never flinched even in the face of 100,000 Turkish cavalry by the Weishua River, now narrowed slightly. The sense of oppression was suffocating. In the corner, Wang De felt as though his heart might cease to beat. He yearned to sever his own ears, or to strangle himself on the spot. The Tang had perished. Wang De curled into a ball, pressing his forehead firmly against the ground, deliberately holding his breath. He had served the emperor for half a lifetime, and understood all too well what such a deathly silence signified. It was the portentous stillness before the emperor's sword was drawn. After years of silence, Li Shimin spoke, his voice unwavering. He did not inquire as to why, nor did he exclaim disbelief. As a man who carved a bloody path through chaos, he accepted this harsh reality at once and began to demand the core data. Li Yu regarded this man before him, silently acknowledging that this was the demeanor befitting a timeless emperor. 289 years. Li Yu replied. Nearly 3 centuries. Li Shimin slowly withdrew his hand, the knuckles paling from the exertion. He quietly mulled over the number. It was neither short nor long. The Han dynasty flourished for 400 years, yet the realm that you, Li Air, established, lasted less than 300? Li Shimin felt a profound sense of shame. He raised his gaze, his eyes piercing into Li Yu's. What was the root cause? Was it the incompetence of your descendants? External invasions? Or natural calamities? Li Yu refrained from answering directly. He bent down, retrieving the still fizzing cola bottle from the ground, unbothered by its dirtiness, casually wiping it with his sleeve before squatting down. Ancestor, observe closely. Li Yu gestured to the pool of black liquid on the floor. Li Shimin silently returned to his seat, leaning forward, his gaze sharp as a hawk's. Li Yu extended his finger, dipping it into the cola stain on the ground, and drew a large circle on the floor. The Tang dynasty did not fall due to external forces, but rather from within. His voice echoed throughout the vast hall. Within the circle, he sketched a character resembling a field. This represented the land. Next to it, he drew a simple figure holding a knife, symbolizing the soldiers. Li Yu lifted his gaze, his eyes deep with contemplation. Ancestor, the military strength of the Tang that you take pride in, the very foundation of sweeping across the realm, relies on the system of provincial soldiers. Farmers cultivate the land, tilling it in peace, and when war arises, they provide their own rations and weapons, allowing the court to avoid maintaining a standing army while still collecting taxes. This system, in your hands, is a flawless closed loop. Li Shimin nodded slightly, a flicker of pride crossing his eyes. This is the cornerstone of the nation, the integration of military and agricultural forces, concealing soldiers among the populace, strengthening the core while weakening the branches. Indeed, in the initial stages of establishment, this was a masterstroke. Li Yu scoffed, abruptly slicing through the character representing the field with his ink-stained finger. But what if the land were to vanish? Li Shimin's brow furrowed. His sharp political instincts immediately grasped the crux of the matter. Are you suggesting consolidation? Not merely consolidation, but a deadlock between population explosion and the finite amount of land. Li Yu articulated rapidly, adopting the perspective of a modern observer. In the early years of Jingguan, the population of the Tang was less than 20 million, with ample land to distribute among the citizenry. However, your governance has been too effective. Under a prosperous era, the population surged dramatically. 50 years later, the population could double, and in a century, it might reach 50 to 80 million. Yet, the land has scarcely been expanded, and the Guanzhong Plain has lost its fertility due to overexploitation. While the population multiplies, what will those surplus able-bodied men eat? What will they use to purchase weapons and bows to serve as provincial soldiers? Li Shimin's expression turned grave. He understood, this was a deadlock. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. What if there were no water to sustain their existence? Li Yu's finger, now dipped in black liquid, sketched a massive greedy mouth beside the character for the field. Accelerating this deadlock was the aristocracy. As those two characters were uttered, the temperature in the hall seemed to plummet several degrees. The 5 prominent surnames and 7 influential clans. Li Shimin clenched the armrest of his chair, realizing the inevitable harm that these parasites would cause. They are far more avaricious than you imagine. Li Yu coldly added, they exploit the privileges in their hands, evading taxes and labor duties. In times of disaster, they trade a bushel of rice for a peasant's acre of land. In prosperous years, they drive the populace to sell their children under the pressure of usury. Eventually, 70% of the Tang's land fell into the hands of the aristocracy, transforming the common folk into displaced persons and stateless individuals. The provincial soldier system collapsed because no one qualified to serve as a provincial soldier remained. Li Yu drew a jagged line on the ground. With no one to serve, the court could only resort to hiring soldiers, known as the mercenary system. But whom do these hired soldiers obey? They follow the commander, who pays them. The court lacks funds, and tax revenues dwindle, leading commanders to collect taxes and maintain their own troops locally. Thus, regional warlords emerged, and the military governors came into being. Li Yu drew a large circle, enclosing the character for soldier within it, inscribing the word and beside it. And Lushan. Li Yu gazed at Li Shimin, a hint of sympathy lacing his tone. Your great-grandson, Li Longji, displayed remarkable wisdom and valor in his early reign, yet succumbed to folly and despotism in his later years. He favored that rotund barbarian, granting him command over 3 military regions. This wolf, nurtured by the coffers of the Tang, ultimately severed the very spine of the dynasty. That conflict was known as the Ungshi Rebellion. Henceforth, the once prosperous city of Chang'an experienced its first bloodshed. The sovereign of your lineage was compelled to flee to Shu. With a sharp crack, a corner of the Zetonwood armrest in Li Shimin's grip splintered under his force. Wood shavings pierced his palm, blood seeping forth. Yet he remained oblivious. He did not roar. Instead, his countenance darkened, as if it could weep. And Lushan. He whispered this name, his tone eerily calm. Good, very well. I shall remember it. These few simple words bore a weight more terrifying than any furious shout. Those familiar with him understood that this yet-to-be-born in Lushan, along with his entire clan, had already been inscribed on Li Shimin's death list. Should that tribe dare to emerge, they would be met with the ruthless blade of the general of heavenly strategy. Futile. Li Yu shook his head, suddenly seized by a violent fit of coughing. Cough, cough, cough. Bent over, he clutched his mouth in agony, pale fingers stained with blood. Yet he pressed on, his gaze intensifying as he fixated on Li Shimin, slain Lushan, along with Li Lushan and Wang Lushan. As long as the aristocracy continues to drain the life from the land, as long as land still consolidates, the blood of the Tang shall inevitably be drained dry. Gasping for breath, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, he revealed a cruel and eerie smile. However, my ancestor, do not be too saddened. Though the Tang has perished, those who forced you into sleepless nights, incessantly recounting ancestral laws, those 5 surnames and 7 esteemed families, met a fate far worse than that of the Tang. Chapter 8. The city adorned in golden armor. Li Shimin immediately inquired, is this truly the case? How did they perish? Li Yu steadied himself against the table, wavering as he rose. In the dimly lit side hall, he envisioned the conflagration that would engulf the city 200 years hence. He took a few steps, his voice rising and falling, infused with a tempestuous aura of vengeance and sorrow. When autumn arrives on the 8th of September, my flowers bloom, and all other blossoms shall perish. The fragrance ascends, permeating Chang'an, the entire city adorned in golden armor. Li Shimin trembled. What a ferocious poem. What immense bloodlust. Li Yu turned to him, softly uttering the most sanguinary and vindicating annotation from history. That failed scholar, Huang Chao, upon invading Chang'an, committed one act. He trod upon the bones of the nobility. My ancestor, can you fathom this? Li Yu's voice heightened, tinged with a morbid ecstasy. Those you despise, the Cui family, the Lu family, the Wang family, venerable houses that have persisted for millennia, those elite families that would meticulously select suitors for your daughter, were slaughtered by those landless peasants. Nearly to the last. The men were beheaded, the women exiled. Their corpses were treated as refuse, littering the streets of Zhuge, trampled by thousands of horses, reduced to mere pulp. A fire consumed their ancestral lineage, while a blade severed their legacy. From the onset of Huang Chao's rebellion, countless heroes rose to arms, ruthlessly extinguishing the noble clans. By the conclusion of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms, the world was devoid of such families. Silence. In the corner, Wang De trembled so violently that he forgot to shiver. What had he just heard? The streets of heaven trampled over the bones of officials? Those lofty lords, who even the emperor had to regard with deference, had been annihilated. This was nothing short of a cataclysmic prophecy. How audacious! How outrageous! Wang De screamed internally, convinced the speaker was mad. Yet, Li Shimin sat there, his expression remarkably vivid. First came shock, followed by realization. Finally, his lips curled into an uncontrollable smile, revealing a sense of profound satisfaction. Ha! What a splendid proclamation. The streets of heaven trampled over the bones of officials. Li Shimin slammed the table, tears brimming in his eyes, not from sorrow for the turmoil of the Tang dynasty, but from sheer delight. Well done, those parasites, those butchers. Though I cannot act due to my reputation, divine justice will ultimately prevail. In that moment, he was no longer the emperor balancing various factions, but a warrior reveling in the demise of his adversaries. Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, Li Yu's body went limp, and a violent fit of coughing seized him once more, far more intense than before. A spray of blood splattered onto the dark stain on the floor, a shocking blend of red and black. Li Yu's vision blurred, and he toppled backward. Li Shimin was jolted from his tumultuous emotions. Instinctively, he sprang up, catching the faltering Li Yu. At that moment, he shed all semblance of imperial grandeur, appearing instead as a terrified elder. Water! Wang De, quickly, fetch water! Li Shimin called urgently to the corner. Wang De soon approached with a teacup, the sound of the lid clinking against the bowl echoing in the air. Your Majesty. Water is here. Li Shimin snatched the teacup, disregarding Wang De's assistance, and personally brought it to Li Yu's lips. One hand supported Li Yu's back to ease his breathing, while the other carefully held the tea, though his movements were awkward. Take your time, sip slowly. Li Shimin observed Li Yu's pallid face and the blood at the corner of his mouth, his heart twisting in pain. Child, do not rush. We can discuss the matters of the Tang dynasty at a leisurely pace. I am no longer in a hurry, truly. Li Shimin felt genuine sorrow. Setting aside the mantle of a prophet, this young man before him was his only kindred spirit in the world, the sole one who understood his anxieties and dared to speak the truth to him. With Li Shimin's hand supporting him, Li Yu managed to sip a few mouthfuls of warm water, suppressing the metallic taste of blood. Leaning against the chair, he panted weakly, gazing at Li Shimin, who was close at hand. The concern in that man's eyes was genuine. The ancestor, Li Yu, wiped his mouth, offering a bitter smile, unmindful of propriety as he slumped into the chair, realizing the gravity of his revelations had brought about swift retribution. Nonsense. Li Shimin shot him a stern glance, then took the broad sleeve of his dragon robe to wipe the cold sweat from Li Yu's forehead. With me here, even the king of hell would not dare to claim you. The domineering and unreasonable words warmed Li Yu's heart. The atmosphere, once tense with the weight of national fate, gradually softened. Li Shimin returned to his chair but drew it closer, their knees almost touching. With the state affairs concluded and the truths understood, Li Shimin's gaze deepened once more. He recognized that land consolidation was a persistent ailment. However, armed with his wisdom and Li Yu's foresight of the future, he felt confident in unraveling this impasse. Yet, within him lingered another knot, one that troubled him far more than the fall of the Tang dynasty, robbing him of his sleep. He looked at Li Yu, hesitating for a long while. His hands, accustomed to wielding swords and making decisive judgments, seemed lost, restless as they rubbed against the fabric of his knee. Finally, he mustered the courage to ask, his voice barely above a whisper, tinged with a child's yearning for validation and a tremor of fear at the anticipated answer. Li Yu, does the history book from 1400 years hence still condemn me? Li Shimin lowered his head, unable to meet Li Yu's gaze. Wang De knelt in the corner, wishing he could turn deaf, aware that this was the emperor's Achilles heel, an ultimate taboo for the entire Tang dynasty. This question haunted Li Shimin throughout his life. Why did he toil day and night over official documents, even with bloodshot eyes refusing to rest? Why did he, like an ascetic, restrain his desires, hesitating for 3 years even to construct a palace? Why did he endure Wei Zhang's incessant reproaches, having to smile even as spittle splattered his face? Was it not to redeem himself? Was it not to demonstrate that his reign surpassed that of his elder brother, Li Jianqing, by 1,000-fold? He feared that after death, he would be reduced to the label of a usurper in cold history books. He feared that future generations would remember him solely as the emperor who murdered his brother. Li Yu regarded the fragile man before him, sensing the profound anxiety that coursed through Li Shimin. This anxiety had forged him into a revered monarch throughout the ages, yet simultaneously transformed him into a tightly wound patient. Li Yu sighed. Instead of answering directly, he picked up the half-finished bottle of cola from the table and twisted off the cap. Ancestors, do you know how historical figures are evaluated in my time? Li Shimin shook his head in confusion, his eyes filled with trepidation. Li Yu's tone shifted to one of unprecedented solemnity and casualness, embodying a modern detachment towards history. We do not judge personal virtues. We do not tally the lives you took or the women you bedded. We focus solely on one question. What have you done for this nation? Chapter 9. Suffering yet joyful. Li Yu steadied himself against the armrest and slowly rose to his feet. Although his body remained frail, at that moment, his aura subtly overshadowed Li Shimin's. For he represented not just an individual, but the collective opinion of 14 billion descendants of the Huaxia nation, 14 centuries into the future. Li Shimin, heed my words. Li Yu's voice was soft, yet each word resonated like a mighty bell. Throughout the vast expanse of China's 5,000-year history, there have been over 400 emperors. But only 4 are frequently mentioned by posterity, even being referred to as great emperors. Li Yu extended 4 fingers, swaying them gently in the candlelight. Qin Shi Huang, Han Wu, Tang Zong, and Song Zhu. This Tang Zong is you, Emperor Taizong of Tang, Li Shimin. Li Shimin's body trembled, his pupils dilated, and his lips parted slightly. Although he held a disdainful view of Qin Shi Huang and Han Wu, considering them tyrants, he keenly realized that future generations would assess him based on his territorial expansions and the subjugation of foreign tribes. Thus, he calmly pondered, could it be that I am to be ranked alongside them? Li Yu did not grant him a moment's respite, continuing with fervor, not only that. Historians of the future have bestowed upon you an ultimate evaluation encapsulated in 8 characters. These 8 characters proclaim that you are unparalleled in history. A figure without equal to come. Leaning closer, his pale face nearly touching Li Shimin's, Li Yu's eyes burned with zeal, and in the eyes of the common folk. You are the eternal emperor, the heavenly Khan. If the previous remark about treading upon the bones of officials was shocking, then these words served as a redemption for Li Shimin. He stood frozen, his hands clutching his thighs, nails digging into flesh without his awareness, tears streaming down his face without warning. An eternal emperor? Like a child, he repeated the phrase, each utterance shattering the immense stone that had weighed upon him for half a lifetime. Indeed, Li Yu's voice softened, imbued with the clarity and reassurance of modernity. Ancestor. The people do not concern themselves with whether the blood at Xuanwu Gate was warm or cold. They only care if the rice in their bowls is hot. You initiated the Jingguan era. You commanded the Turks to dance for you. You revitalized the Silk Road, allowing the citizens of the Tang dynasty to proudly declare their heritage wherever they went. That is sufficient. Pausing, he observed Li Shimin's tear-streaked visage and let out a light, almost dismissive laugh. As for the fratricide and paternal coercion, that is merely the game of power, the law of survival. On that day, had you not acted, it would have been you and the entire Qin royal house that perished. Many in later generations have even remarked, fortuitously, it was you, Li Shimin, who emerged victorious that day. Suddenly, Li Shimin covered his face, releasing a long-suppressed sob. This sob soon transformed into uproarious laughter. Ha ha ha! He tilted his head back, laughing heartily, tears and snot streaming down his face, completely devoid of imperial dignity, his laughter bordering on madness. Within that laughter, there was relief, grievance, ecstasy, and a sense of newfound vigor. For so many years, he had trudged forward like a wandering ascetic burdened by heavy shackles, each day whipping himself into compliance. Terrified of missteps, fearful of being judged by posterity. This night, a relative from 1400 years hence conveyed to him, you have succeeded. Not only have you succeeded, but you have also become a benchmark, a legend, the pinnacle that all emperors can only aspire to behold. Well, what a formidable Qin Shi Huang and Han Wu. What magnificent Tang Zong and Ming Zhu. Li Shimin rose to his feet, wiping away the tears from his face. In that moment, his aura had transformed. The persistent gloom that had long shrouded his brow dissipated in an instant, replaced by the boundless ambition reminiscent of a rising sun, a reflection of the legendary general of the heavenly strategy, who had once triumphed over 100,000 foes with a mere 3,000 iron cavalry at the pass of Hulao. He gazed at Li Yu as if he were the sole confidant in this world, striding towards him with purpose. He opened his arms and enveloped Li Yu in a powerful embrace that left Li Yu's bones aching from the intensity. Thank you, my child. Li Shimin's voice resonated in Li Yu's ear, imbued with a profound nasal timbre, yet unwaveringly resolute. This is a truth I have awaited my entire life. And to my astonishment, it is you who reveals it to me. Li Yu, too, found himself moved by this surge of emotion, gently patting Li Shimin's broad back. He could sense the tremor coursing through this middle-aged man's body. It was the release of burdens long borne. Ancestor, there is no need for concern. The past is but a memory. What we must focus on is the future. Indeed, let us gaze upon the future. Li Shimin released Li Yu, his hands grasping his shoulders, his phoenix-like eyes ablaze with an exhilarating ambition. Since history has bestowed upon me the title of Eternal Emperor, how can I be content with merely that? As I have become the heavenly Khan, must not the expanse of heaven be broadened further? With such latent dangers looming over the future of the Tang dynasty, I shall snuff them out in their infancy. Li Yu. The power in Li Shimin's voice resonated with the roar of the Tang's engine reigniting. Since I have committed no wrongdoing, and the people acknowledge me as their emperor, starting tomorrow, I shall embrace a new way of life. Those aristocratic families, once I granted them the courtesy of leniency, fearing they might disrupt the state, but now, I shall show them the true might of the heavenly Khan. If they dare to annex land, I shall not hesitate to sever their claws. As for those barbarians, I once entertained the notion of conciliatory policies, showcasing the benevolence of a great nation, but now, I shall do as you suggested, and plant the banner of the Tang in every corner. If they dare to rebel in the future, let them commence mining for me now. System notification. Li Shimin's mental barriers have been dismantled, and his state of mind has been reshaped. Trust level significantly increased. Current trust level, 80, deeply trusting. Historical trajectory, slightly altered. Reward summary. Lifespan extended by 15 days. Pain tolerance increased to 80. The system notification echoed within Li Yu's mind. Simultaneously, a warm current coursed through him, alleviating much of the persistent discomfort in his liver. He exhaled deeply, gazing at the invigorated Li Shimin before him, who appeared rejuvenated by a decade. A subtle smile graced his lips. This was the partner he desired for the Tang dynasty, one devoid of internal strife, embodying both wisdom and dominance, complemented by his own modern technological prowess. The mere thought of such a scenario ignited a fervor within him. Li Shimin composed himself and urged Li Yu to sit once more. This time, he refrained from revisiting the ancient tales of the Tang or dwelling on past grievances. His gaze transcended the window, penetrating the profound night sky, as if seeking to unveil the mists of 14 centuries past. As a timeless emperor, his wisdom enabled him to keenly grasp another crucial piece of information hidden within Li Yu's discourse. He turned his gaze towards Li Yu, his eyes shimmering with a childlike curiosity and yearning, a longing for a higher dimensional civilization. Li Yu, having spoken so extensively about the Tang dynasty, you have yet to reveal to me what the world will resemble 1400 years hence. Li Yu took a gentle sip from the bottle of cola, a mysterious smile gracing his lips. He eschewed lengthy explanations, merely gesturing towards the dark bottle in his hand, and then towards the sky above. Oh, that world. There are no emperors, yet every individual can secure a full meal. The iron birds soar above the clouds, and the nights there are brighter than the days here in the Tang dynasty. Chapter 10. What does the future hold? It is a myth. Li Yu's voice echoed within the vast, empty hall. He gently shook the cola bottle, the dark liquid leaving brown streaks upon the plastic surface. Li Shimin's gaze remained intently fixed on Li Yu's face, within his eyes, which had witnessed countless sails. There was not merely curiosity but a tremor of both dread and desire, as if standing on the precipice, peering into the abyss. This was the first time he had heard of the world's visage. No emperors, Li Shimin murmured, his brow furrowing, his fingers unconsciously tracing the jade belt at his waist. Without a sovereign or a father figure, would the realm not descend into chaos? Who would govern the multitude? Who would quell the disturbances from all corners? Ancestors. You are mistaken. Li Yu chuckled softly, his body appearing somewhat weary from exertion, yet he straightened with resolve, his eyes gleaming with an extraordinary brightness. In that world, the greatest emperor is not an individual, but a system of rules, a set of regulations that every person, be they humble laborers or heads of state, must abide by. We call it the rule of law. Li Shimin pondered this notion. The methods of the legalists? Harsh penalties and strict laws? It is a contract, Li Yu replied, shaking his head. It is a covenant signed by every individual and the state. The state protects you, and in return, you contribute taxes to sustain the nation. Whoever breaches this contract shall be removed from power. This concept was far too avant-garde for Li Shimin, bordering on the radical. Yet he sensed within it an immense power, a balance that did not rely on bloodshed for its maintenance. And the common people? Li Shimin pressed. For this was his utmost concern. You assert that everyone can have enough to eat? How is that possible? Even in our prosperous Tang, there are those who perish from starvation. Natural disasters and man-made calamities are beyond human control. Quite simply, we achieve a yield of 1,000 caddies of grain per mu. In our world, a yield of 1,000 caddies is merely a baseline. Li Yu's voice resonated with profound pride as he began to paint a picture of that world. Akin to a celestial realm for the people of Tang, we possess iron oxen, as grand as palaces, which require no fodder and run on black oil. They can till all of the imperial fields of the Tang in a single day. We have vessels 100 times larger than your hall of governance, needing neither sails nor oars, capable of transporting tens of thousands of caddies of grain, traversing the seas faster than galloping steeds. We can even control the rainfall, transforming deserts into lush oases. In that world, allowing people to starve is an unforgivable scandal, the greatest disgrace for any ruler. Li Shimin inhaled deeply, a shiver coursing through his lungs. In the corner, Wangda buried his head lower, fearing that he might overhear secrets not meant for his ears and face dire consequences. Tilling the fields with iron plows? Controlling the rain? The shame of starvation? This was no earthly realm. It was a celestial world he dared not dream of. A wave of dizziness swept over Li Shimin, and his pride in the governance of the Jingguan era seemed utterly meager in comparison to such descriptions. Moreover, Li Yu appeared invigorated, gesturing towards the night sky that pointed towards the direction of Chang'an. We sit within an iron bird known as an airplane, soaring higher than the clouds. We could savor lamb stew in Chang'an in the morning and enjoy seafood by the sea, thousands of miles away, by noon. A journey of 1,000 miles in a single day? Li Shimin exclaimed, this being the pinnacle of his imagination regarding speed. Nay, a journey of 10,000 miles. Li Yu remarked casually. Li Shimin was rendered speechless. He gazed upon the resplendent, yet seemingly confined palace, a profound sense of disparity and insignificance enveloping him. Then there was the night. Li Yu pointed to the dim candlelight, stating, over there is no darkness. Our city at night is aglow, bright as day, illuminated by an invisible force called electricity, far exceeding the brilliance of 10,000 candles. A city that never sleeps, Li Shimin murmured, his eyes filled with longing, envisioning the splendor it must possess. An education? Li Shimin recalled Li Yu's mention of universal literacy. That is the simplest aspect. Li Yu smiled. In that world, education is compulsory. Should you deny your children the opportunity to learn, the authorities would imprison you. What? This time? Even Wangda in the corner could not suppress his astonishment. quickly covering his mouth thereafter. In the Tang dynasty, education was the privilege of the aristocracy. A luxury for the impoverished, a book was worth its weight in gold, an illiterate individual was a treasure. The notion of the government compelling people to read was beyond comprehension. 9 years of compulsory education, Li Yu gently articulated, his gaze softening. Regardless of your lineage, whether you are destitute or wealthy enough to rival nations, the state provides for 9 years of schooling. A literacy rate of 100%. Li Shimin slumped in his chair, his eyes vacant. He envisioned a scene. Farmers in the fields reading the Analects, border soldiers writing letters home, street vendors performing arithmetic. What a formidable yet glorious era that would be. If such a populace existed, how could the Tang fail to thrive? How could foreign foes prevail? How wonderful. Li Shimin's voice trembled, his eyes glistening with moisture. I truly wish to see it, to witness firsthand the lives led by my descendants. You shall have the opportunity. Li Yu reassured him. Unbeknownst to them, the night outside began to pale. This night felt both interminable and fleeting. Li Shimin resembled a voracious student, eager to extract every word from Li Yu's mind. In turn, Li Yu poured forth the dazzling tapestry of modern civilization, revealing it piece by piece to this timeless emperor. The voice of the venerable ancestor, Li Yu, suddenly weakened, as the vitality he had been desperately clinging to, like a deflated balloon, dissipated with the dawn. Although the system had alleviated 80% of his pain, sparing him from the depths of despair he had previously endured, his body was, after all, in the late stages of cancer. The relentless intensity of traversing realms, saving others, and engaging in late-night discussions had thoroughly drained his energy. His eyelids felt as heavy as lead, and his mind began to signal an impending shutdown. I can't go on, Li Yu slumped, his body sliding down like a puddle of mud. Li Yu, Li Shimin exclaimed in alarm, rushing over to support him. The touch was not cold, but rather warm. Yet all movement had ceased. Quick, summon the imperial physician. Li Shimin panicked. Your Majesty, the young master seems merely to be asleep. Wang De, gathering his courage, leaned closer to listen to his breath, which came as a heavy snore. Li Shimin paused for a moment, then smiled bitterly. This lad, how audacious he is to sleep like a log even before me. Assist him to the couch. The two hastily helped Li Yu onto the soft couch in the side hall. He had scarcely touched the pillow before he fell into a profound slumber. Not even bothering to remove his shoes, Li Shimin stood by the couch, observing this young man, whose brow remained furrowed even in sleep, and his heart was filled with mixed emotions. Was this the price of revealing heavenly secrets? Was this the sacrifice of a descendant who risked his life for the sake of the great Tang? Your Majesty, dawn is approaching. It is time to return to the palace to change and attend court, Wang De gently reminded, his voice tinged with concern. For the emperor too had endured an entire night, the shadows of fatigue evident beneath his eyes. Li Shimin waved his hand lightly, as if to avoid disturbing the gentle breeze. No court today. We shall adjourn. Wang De was taken aback. A diligent ruler like Li Shimin had never adjourned court except when gravely ill. I shall go check on Guanyin maid. Li Shimin tucked in the covers for Li Yu, then turned and exited the side hall, his steps weary yet resolute. Within the hall of governance, the candles had extinguished. Li Shimin entered quietly, not disturbing anyone. He did not awaken the recently fever-free Empress Changsun, but instead laid a thick mattress by her bedside. Thus, the mighty emperor of the Tang dynasty prepared to sleep on the floor. He was utterly exhausted, yet it was only by remaining close to his wife, near that ethereal descendant, that he could find solace. In this slumber, Li Shimin dreamt a dream. He envisioned himself aboard a colossal ship, akin to a mountain, braving the winds and waves. Above him soared iron birds, while beneath his feet sprawled fields of golden wheat, with countless citizens clad in peculiar attire, their faces radiant with smiles, cheering for him and calling him the heavenly Khan. Beside him stood the healthy Guanyin maid and that descendant from the future. Chapter 11. The wrathful Li Shimin Erlang? A gentle call roused Li Shimin from his dream. Upon opening his eyes, he beheld Empress Changsun leaning against the headboard, a smile illuminating her face. Though her complexion remained pale, her eyes had regained clarity. Guanyin maid. Li Shimin sprang up, disregarding the chill of the floor, grasping his wife's hand. You are awake? How do you feel? Is your chest still tight? Much better. Empress Changsun gently remarked. Last night, after using that divine essence, I slept profoundly. This morning, upon awakening, I felt a significant improvement in my vitality and even consumed half a bowl of rice porridge. That is splendid. Truly splendid. Li Shimin exclaimed, his excitement reminiscent of a child. He sat at the edge of the bed, grasping the Empress's hand, and began to recount the events of the previous night. The wonders of Li Yu, the delightful taste of that joyous beverage, the marvel of the iron bird that traverses thousands of miles, and the prosperous era in which everyone is educated. Empress Changsun listened attentively, her gaze warm and focused. She understood the profound spiritual awakening her husband had experienced the previous night. Erlang, that child is indeed a blessing for our Li family, Empress Changsun softly stated. We must ensure he comes to visit. I wish to personally express my gratitude for his life-saving grace. Of course, Li Shimin sighed. I previously believed that fate resided within me, yet now I realize that it lies with this child. Their conversation flowed effortlessly until the sun reached its zenith, and it was time for lunch. As the afternoon progressed towards the hour of shun, Li Shimin glanced outside, feeling an unease settle within him. Is the child still not awake? He inquired of Wang De. Your Majesty, there has been no movement. This old servant dared not disturb him, Wang De replied. I shall summon him myself, Li Shimin declared, rising to adjust his robe. Prolonged slumber is detrimental. It can harm the spirit, and I have many more questions yet to ask. With anticipation, he strode towards the side chamber. The evening sun's afterglow streamed through the window, casting a golden sheen upon the gilded tiles of the chamber, imbuing everything with an air of opulence. Li Yu remained asleep, roused only by a gentle shaking. Li Yu? Li Yu? Awaken, it is already dark, Li Shimin called. Groggily, Li Yu opened his eyes to see a magnified visage of Li Shimin leaning close. A bowl of warm meat porridge in hand, his expression filled with concern, resembling a benevolent father. What time is it? Li Yu asked instinctively, feeling as if his body had been disassembled. It is the hour of Shun. Li Shimin assisted him in sitting up, propping the pillow for support. You must be hungry. Drink this porridge. The physician indicated you are deficient in both energy and blood and need nourishment. Li Yu, not one to refuse, accepted the porridge from Li Shimin's hand and drank it down in one go. The warmth coursed through him, reviving his nearly dormant mind. How is the Empress? Li Yu inquired, wiping his mouth. Much improved. Thanks to your miraculous medicine, Li Shimin replied, his joy evident. She can now sit up and share banter with me. That is good to hear. Li Yu nodded, reclining back against the pillow. I shall sleep a while longer. Do not sleep just yet, Li Shimin urged, pulling him up. I have serious matters to discuss with you. A brief silence enveloped them. The atmosphere, once warm and infused with a rare sense of familial affection, soon shifted. Li Shimin set down the bowl, his demeanor turning grave. The imposing presence of a timeless emperor returned, yet this time, it was directed towards the most pressing familial concern, a soft spot that no sovereign could evade, succession. Li Yu, Li Shimin carefully selected his words, his tone imbued with paternal pride and a hint of inquiry. Last night, you mentioned that the Tang dynasty would perish due to internal strife. I acknowledge those words. I shall amend my ways. I shall take action. However, he abruptly changed his tone, his gaze growing somewhat stubborn, even boastful, as he inquired. Since you hail from the future, can you enlighten me about how my children fared? A pang of apprehension struck Li Yu's heart. He gazed into the expectant eyes of Li Shimin, which sparkled with the unique radiance of a father. Ancestor, what do you think of them? Li Yu retorted. A trace of self-satisfaction appeared on Li Shimin's face, a look characteristic of a proud creator discussing his cherished works, though Changqian has a leg ailment. He is benevolent and magnanimous. Over the years, he has managed state affairs commendably, and I have always nurtured him as a capable ruler. Qin Ke is exceptionally intelligent, gifted with eloquence, having authored the Qua Di Ji, reminiscent of my own youthful brilliance. Then there is Kuer, who, albeit somewhat impetuous, possesses remarkable valor. Gaoyang is also dear to my heart, vivacious and delightful. Li Shimin looked at Li Yu as if seeking validation. I have poured my utmost devotion into their upbringing. Even if history declares the fall of the Tang, surely my sons cannot be too lacking? This was a pitiable, blind paternal love. Despite being the heavenly Khan, he donned a thick filter when confronted with his most beloved children. Observing the hopeful gaze of Li Shimin, Li Yu sighed inwardly. It is better to endure a short pain than a prolonged one. If this festering wound is not lanced, the tragedy of the Tang will repeat in the 17th year of the Jingguan era. Ancestor, Li Yu straightened his posture, his expression turning resolute and icy, devoid of the previous warmth. Do you wish to hear the truth? A pang of anxiety gripped Li Shimin's heart, an ominous premonition looming. Yet he nodded. I wish to hear the truth. Very well. Li Yu took a deep breath, coldly pronouncing the first verdict, your pride and joy. Your eldest son Li Chengxian, in the 17th year of Jingguan, due to a twisted psyche, will rise in rebellion. Rebellion? Li Shimin's body trembled, his eyes widening in disbelief, his voice escalating. Chengxian? Rebellion? Has he lost his mind? I have already named him crown prince. Why would he rebel? Instinctively, he gestured to interrupt the conversation, his face betraying disbelief and resistance. This is impossible. Chengxian is benevolent. He must be a victim of slander. Such absurdity need not be repeated. He did not wish to hear it. This was a father's instinctive evasion. Yet Li Yu pressed on. He understood that if the wound was not torn open now, the rotting flesh within would never heal. Does ignoring the truth make it vanish? Li Yu raised his voice. You doubt Chengxian's rebellion? What of your most cherished second son, Li Tai, who, in his quest for the throne, relentlessly pressures others, and even threatens to kill his own to deceive you? Silence. Li Shimin sprang to his feet, his face ashen, his trembling finger pointing at Li Yu. Qin Ke is the most filial. He could never do such a thing. I command you to be silent. Stop this nonsense. Li Yu, observing the brink of fury in Li Shimin, allowed a cold smile to curve his lips, speaking faster and with greater ferocity. And then there is Li Ke. Entangled in the case orchestrated by Changsun Wuji, he was wrongfully executed in prison. Your most beloved little son, who perished at the tender age of 12. I command you to be silent. Li Shimin felt as though his heart had been pierced by 1,000 arrows. His proud family, his treasured children, have turned into a hellish visage in the mouths of the populace. Father and son turn against each other. Brothers clash. A beloved daughter meets an untimely death. This is the most malevolent curse in the world. The emperor's sword is drawn. Chapter 12. What distinguishes you from your father, Li Yuan? Li Shimin, sword in hand, his chest heaving violently, fixated on Li Yu, the blade trembling in his grip. Dare you sow discord among my kin? Dare you curse my children? I care not whether you are a deity or a specter. Today, your blood shall stain the ground. Your majesty, do not. In the corner, Wang De, terrified, felt his spirit flee. He saw the emperor truly harboring murderous intent, and, disregarding everything, lunged forward, clutching tightly to Li Shimin's leg, dragging himself along the floor. Your majesty, the empress's ailment relies on the young lord. You cannot kill him, you cannot. Get off. Li Shimin kicked Wang De's shoulder, but he clung on stubbornly. Wang De, dazed from the blow, refused to let go, turning to the distant young eunuch outside the hall, shouting hoarsely, hurry, fetch the empress, quickly. The young eunuch, paralyzed with fear, dashed towards the hall of governance. Inside the side hall, tensions were palpable. Li Shimin still aimed his sword at Li Yu. Speak again, and I dare you. Li Yu, confronted with the blade so near, erupted. The grievances of 10 days of imprisonment, the fury of being treated as a thief after rescuing someone. The frustration of goodwill met with ingratitude surged to his head. He did not retreat. Instead, he stepped forward, his neck nearly brushing against the sword's edge. What of it if I speak again? His voice rose into a furious roar, shaking the rafters. Li Shimin, open your eyes and see. What separates you from your father, Li Yuan? Li Shimin froze, his pupils trembling as if he had heard the most astonishing accusation in existence. You dare say I am like that old fool? Just like him. Li Yu pointed accusingly at Li Shimin, spitting in his face with fervor. Wasn't Li Yuan just the same? Observing your rivalry with Li Jianxing, what did he do? He feigned ignorance. He sought balance. He wished to be a benevolent father while preserving imperial power. And what was the outcome? The Xuanwu Gate incident. Rivers of blood. Forcing you to slay your brother and butcher your kin. And now you tread the same path your father did. You have named Chengqian as heir, yet indulge Li Tai with outrageous favoritism, allowing him to reside in the Wuda Hall, establishing a literary academy. You are nurturing a viper. You have driven them to madness. You have turned Li Tai into an ambitious schemer. This is all your fault. Nonsense. Li Shimin, now truly enraged, felt his dignity as an emperor trampled upon. He swung his sword, roaring back like an enraged lion. What do you, a mere child, understand? Do you comprehend the difficulties I have provided them with the finest teachers and the best of lives? How dare you compare me to that foolish old man? Bah! Li Yu spat vehemently. What nonsense about balance? Have you gone too far? Have you played with lives? Your so-called balance merely allows your sons to slaughter one another? Moreover, historical records clearly state that since you deposed the crown prince, only 2 of your sons have met a good end. Li Shimin trembled with rage, his sword trembling in his grip. This is sheer rebellion. I shall execute you. Come on, strike me down. Li Yu had completely lost his composure. Entering a state of defiance, he thrust out his neck, pointing to his carotid artery, his eyes filled with derision and disdain. Strike here. If you so much as furrow your brow, I am your grandson. Though indeed, I am your true grandson. Just 10 days ago, I was merrily enjoying hot pot and singing in the modern world, only to inexplicably find myself in the Tang dynasty, imprisoned by you. I have endured 10 days of spoiled meals. I nearly lost my head at your hands. I risked everything to traverse back to fetch medicine for your wife. I returned and lectured you on history for an entire night. I was nearly exhausted to death. And now, for merely speaking a truth that pricked your pride, you wish to slay me. The more Li Yu spoke, the more aggrieved and incensed he became, finally collapsing into a chair, crossing his legs in a posture of nonchalance, as if to say, do as you will, I fear not the boiling water. Kill me. In any case, I no longer wish to live. If you slay me, your wife shall remain unrescued. Your grand Tang will fall. Let us all perish together. I shall not be lonely on the road to the underworld. Li Shimin was momentarily taken aback by this barrage of insults. He gazed at the young man before him, defiantly holding out his neck, exuding an air of resignation to whatever fate awaited him. The sword he held trembled in the air. Indeed, this young man had saved Guanin's maid. His revelation of heavenly secrets was for the sake of the Tang dynasty. He had just clawed his way back from the gates of death. Was his own behavior not a bit beneath dignity? Li Shimin's chest heaved with tumultuous breaths. While reason slowly returned, a wave of shame surged within him. Yet, he found himself ensnared in a predicament. As the emperor, to be berated and insulted in such a manner, to have someone address him as Li Yuan's son. If he were to cast down his sword now and admit defeat, what would become of the emperor's authority? He stood frozen, the sword still pointed at Li Yu. But his gaze shifted from wrath to embarrassment and confusion. To release the sword or to keep it was a conundrum. At this critical moment, a weak yet authoritative voice rang out from the entrance. Your Majesty, do you intend to dismantle the Hall of Governance? This voice, like a divine melody, instantaneously shattered the deadlock. Both Li Shimin and Li Yu turned their heads in unison. There stood Empress Changsun, draped in a thick cloak, supported by 2 palace maidens. Her face pale, yet her gaze piercing. Guanin's maid. Your Majesty? Li Shimin sighed in relief inwardly. Finally, there was a way out. He quickly took advantage of the situation, concealing his sword behind him, his face adorned with a conciliatory smile as he hastened to meet her. Completely disregarding the prior tension, what brings you here? The physician has advised against exposure to the wind. Quickly, assist her back. The Empress Changsun ignored him, instead focusing on the crimson mark that had emerged on Li Yu's neck. She glanced at the hand concealed behind Li Shimin's back, a flicker of pain flashing in her eyes. Then, she spoke gently to Li Yu. My young sir, do not be afraid. His Majesty has a hasty temperament. But if he truly dares to harm you, I shall be the first to oppose it. Although she had not heard the earlier exchange, the sight of Li Yu's aggrieved expression, coupled with the debt of gratitude she felt, naturally tipped her heart in favor of the young man. Upon hearing her words, Li Shimin felt a profound sense of grievance. How could this fellow dare to insult me first? Guanin Bai, you are unaware, this young man has scolded me. Li Shimin yearned to defend himself, but felt too embarrassed to admit he had been insulted. Empress Changsun cast him a sidelong glance, shaking her head in resignation, as though observing 2 children scrapping in a mud pit, both exasperating and amusing. Enough, Erlang. You are no longer a child. Why do you still take offense like one? He is your junior and a savior. Cannot you concede a little? Li Shimin was left speechless, awkwardly rubbing his nose, and reluctantly addressed Li Yu. What I said earlier was impulsive. I retract my words. This was the utmost concession he could muster. Yet, Li Yu clearly was not impressed. He turned his head away, scoffing him. showing no regard for Li Shimin's feelings. The emperor's face twitched, but with his wife present, he refrained from expressing his annoyance, standing there in an awkward silence. Empress Changsun, observing the two obstinate men, could not help but chuckle. Chapter 13. Establishing rules. The air in the side hall remained somewhat stagnant. Although Li Shimin had verbally apologized, his expression conveyed a sense of, I am the emperor. Granting you an apology is a tremendous favor, and you ought to accept it. With his hands clasped behind his back, he stared at the ornate carvings on the beams, deliberately avoiding looking at Li Yu, who was preoccupied with his own displeasure. His arms crossed, he turned his head away, presenting only the back of his head to Li Shimin. The atmosphere was rather awkward. Empress Changsun, shaking her head in exasperation, fully understood her husband's stubbornness. He was a man who would rather endure humiliation than relinquish his pride. Despite regretting his earlier outburst, he remained as unyielding as a stone. As for the young man before her, she had interacted with him little, yet his temperament mirrored that of her husband in his youth, resistant to strong-handedness, yet yielding to gentleness. With a soft sigh, Empress Changsun decided to break the deadlock. She approached the table, poured herself a cup of tea, tested its warmth, and then presented it to Li Yu. My young sir, take a sip of water to soothe your throat. You shouted so loudly earlier, do be mindful of your voice. Your body is still quite frail. Li Yu gazed at the delicate hand offering the tea, fair, gentle, radiating a maternal warmth. His heart softened. In this unfamiliar epoch, aside from the blood ties of this body, the woman before him evoked feelings reminiscent of his modern mother's nurturing and concern. He accepted the tea and muttered, Thank you, Your Highness. The formality in his address carried an air of distance, causing a slight pang in Empress Changsun's heart, and it also caught Li Shimin's attention. The emperor began to feel a sense of impatience. He is a man of quick temper, finding this Cold War more unbearable than death itself. He coughed twice, attempting to initiate a conversation to shatter the silence. Well, you have continually claimed to be a descendant of the Li family, originating from 400 years after me. Li Shimin, his gaze wandered, searching for words. Although you are privy to celestial secrets, mere words hold no weight. Do you possess any proof? The moment the words left his lips, the air in the side hall grew even colder. Wang De, nestled in a corner, buried his head lower, thinking, Your Majesty, why must you bring up such matters? Just as things were easing, you wish to probe further? Isn't that courting trouble? Li Yu set down his teacup, turning to look at Li Shimin with an expression of incredulity. Proof? I have traversed through 14 centuries. Do you expect me to carry a DNA report with me? And even if I had one, you wouldn't comprehend it. What is DNA? Li Shimin did not grasp the term, but felt a sting from the remark. Li Yu took a deep breath, suppressing his rising anger. He understood that the ancients placed great importance on familial lineage. If he did not firmly establish this truth, Li Shimin would forever harbor doubts about his legitimacy. Very well, you seek proof, he declared, retrieving his mobile phone from his pocket. I initially hesitated to show you this, fearing it might shock you. Yet, since you inquired, I shall clarify everything. Li Yu swiped through his device, opening his photo gallery. Before his journey through time, as a descendant of the Li clan, he had deliberately visited the ancestral hall of the Li family, capturing images of the meticulously restored genealogy and the numerous ancestral tablets within. Come here, Li Yu beckoned. Although Li Shimin deemed Li Yu's words and actions disrespectful, curiosity compelled him to approach, while Empress Changsun leaned in, intrigued. The photograph was of high definition, showcasing a solemn and ancient hall, filled with the fragrance of incense. At the center of the offering table, numerous tablets inscribed with golden characters on a black background were arranged in a pyramid, evoking the image of a formidable military formation. Despite the barrier of the screen and the passage of a millennium, the profound sense of ancestral connection surged forth. Li Yu magnified the image, pointing to the largest tablet at the top. Do you recognize the characters? Li Shimin focused intently, his pupils narrowing in shock. At the pinnacle, it boldly proclaimed, the divine seat of Emperor Yuan, the ancestor of the great Tang, Li Bing. Below it was a row, the divine seat of Emperor Gaozu, the holy and illustrious Emperor Li Yuan. Further down, the divine seat of Emperor Taizong, Li Shimin. A buzzing sensation filled Li Shimin's mind. There was his grandfather, his father, and himself. Even the posthumous titles were inscribed. Before he could fully process this revelation, Li Yu's finger slid downward, indicating the densely packed tablets below. This is your son, Emperor Gaozong Li Ji. This is your grandson, Emperor Zhongzong Li Xian, Emperor Ruizong Li Dan. This is your great-grandson, Emperor Xuanzong Li Longji. Li Yu's finger glided downward, traversing the grandeur of the flourishing Tang dynasty, the turmoil of the Lushan rebellion, the desolation of the late Tang period, all the way to the Republic and the modern era. That lengthy list resembled a flowing river of time. Finally, he opened another photograph, revealing the last page of the genealogy. Clearly inscribed above are the names. 64th generation descendant, Li Shanhe, grandfather Li Yu. 65th generation descendant, Li Jianguo, father of Li Yu. 66th generation descendant, Li Yu. Do you see it clearly? Li Yu pointed at the last name, his voice calm, yet powerful. 66th generation, this is the evidence. My name is inscribed in your Li family's genealogy. Despite the passage of 14 centuries and over 60 generations, the thread connecting my name leads directly to you, Li Shimin. It reaches to your father, Li Yuan. Li Shimin gazed intently at the small screen, observing the multitude of names. Though many were unfamiliar to him and the script somewhat peculiar, he could sense the underlying order, the lineage flowing in an organized manner. Particularly, when he spotted the names of Li Yuan and Li Bing, the shock he felt was undeniable, impossible to fabricate. Such a thing could not be faked. It resonated with a profound echo from the depths of his bloodline, a stirring emotion upon witnessing the unbroken lineage of his descendants flourishing through the ages. Is this truly my family? My progeny? Li Shimin trembled slightly as he reached out to touch the screen, fearful of damaging this miraculous artifact. For the ancients, the greatest terror was the prospect of extinction. At this moment, he beheld the vitality of his bloodline, which, despite the vicissitudes of dynastic change and the ravages of war over the past 14 centuries, had persevered, branching out and extending even to the 66th generation. This assurance surpassed any evidence. Do you believe? Liu pocketed his phone, the screen dimming. Li Shimin regained his composure, gazing at Liu, his expression transformed entirely. If he had previously regarded him as a remarkable figure, then as a benefactor, now he looked upon him as kin, as one of his own. This was a true descendant of his bloodline, hailing from the future. I believe. Li Shimin grasped Liu's hand, disregarding the sweat upon it. The child is good. Excellent. Though the empire of the Tang has perished after 66 generations, my bloodline endures. My heart is greatly comforted. Empress Changsun, standing nearby, discreetly wiped away her tears. It was as if their ancestors had manifested. Since they were family, matters could be more easily addressed. Liu withdrew his hand, seizing this opportunity to steer the conversation back to the essential topic. He felt too weak to indulge in emotional grandstanding. What he sought was tangible assurance of survival. Ancestor, since you believe, should we not discuss the rules? Rules? Li Shimin was taken aback. What rules? Chapter 14. Returning to procure supplies. I am of frail constitution, easily frightened. And if you wish to inquire about my future and assist your great Tang Empire, we must establish some rules. Liu raised 3 fingers, his gaze resolute. Let us agree on 3 principles. Li Shimin raised an eyebrow. In the past, had anyone dared to propose conditions to him, he would have dismissed them outright. Yet now, gazing at this 66th generation grandson, his capacity for tolerance had expanded infinitely. Speak. What are the 3 principles? First, Liu pointed at the gleaming emperor's sword on the ground, a hint of trepidation and mockery in his eyes. No matter how furious you may become, you must not draw your blade against me. My neck is made of flesh, not iron. Should you frighten me once more, I shall procure a rope and hang myself at the entrance of the Liza Palace, ensuring you shall never again contemplate the future or alter the fates of your offspring. Li Shimin's expression twitched. The threat was too severe, striking directly at his vulnerabilities. He gazed at the lingering red mark on Liu's neck, feeling a wave of guilt wash over him. In that fleeting moment, he had indeed contemplated taking a life. By your command, Li Shimin gritted his teeth, his tone softening thereafter. If I were to raise a blade against you again, I would be a tyrant. Wang De, henceforth, whenever Liu arrives, stow this sword away. Secondly, Liu extended a second finger. Let us close the door. We are family here. Do not assume the airs of an emperor with me. I am a man of the modern era, one who kneels only to heaven, earth, and parents, not to living souls. Should you feel that I am lacking in respect, then let us cease our discourse. Li Shimin cast a glance at Empress Zhongsun, who nodded slightly, her eyes reflecting approval. This familial positioning would indeed facilitate Li Er's acceptance of his counsel. With a sweeping gesture, Li Shimin proclaimed, agreed. In private, let us dispense with formalities. Thirdly, Liu tapped his fingers on the table, producing a crisp sound, underscoring the most pragmatic point. In matters of governance, I am merely an advisor. If you wish to inquire about the secrets of the future or seek my assistance in resolving dilemmas, it is not impossible, but it comes at a cost. Cost? Li Shimin was taken aback, expecting Liu to demand power instead. Indeed, a cost, whether in gold or through antiquities, calligraphy, or jade artifacts. Liu spoke candidly. I seek to prolong my existence, a pursuit that demands considerable sacrifice. Thus, my counsel is not without charge. After a brief pause, his gaze turned somewhat languid and resigned. As for whether you choose to heed my words, that is entirely your prerogative. You are the emperor of the Tang. The decisions are yours to make, and the edicts you shall issue. Should you deem my words nonsense, you are free to ignore them. After all, should the Tang fall, you shall not witness it, but I am aware of the outcome. I do not insist you transform the Tang, nor do I compel you to decide who lives or dies. Trust me, and you shall act. Doubt me, and we may simply converse, share tea, and maintain a familial rapport. These words left Li Shimin momentarily speechless. He had anticipated that this descendant from the future would wield his prophetic status to dictate terms or even usurp power. To his surprise, Liu presented an attitude of indifference towards belief, suggesting that disbelief would be equally acceptable. This demeanor, paradoxically, instilled greater confidence in Li Shimin and garnered his respect. For it is only those with genuine conviction who are bold enough to speak thus. As an emperor, he detested being instructed on how to act, but relished being presented with options. Li Shimin regarded Liu with newfound appreciation, a smile gracing his face. Ah, I like your spirit. Very well, I shall abide by your counsel. As long as your methods prove effective, the wealth of the realm shall be yours to command. In that moment, Li Shimin felt as though he had returned to the early years of the Jingguan era, where he was open to wise counsel. However, with a cunning glimmer in his eye, he added, now that we have established these principles, you must no longer conceal your insights. What remarkable treasures exist, such as grains yielding 1,000 jin per mu, the iron plow, the flying iron bird, and the city that never sleeps? Although these marvels cannot be crafted at present, the methods of their creation must be elucidated. Liu rolled his eyes and offered a weak smile. That depends on the funding you are willing to provide. Funding? Li Shimin boomed with laughter, his voice reverberating through the hall. I possess abundant wealth. How much do you require? He rose and began to pace within the side hall, the vigor of his spirit returning. In his elevated mood, He found Li Yu increasingly agreeable. Since we are family, and you are indeed of the Li lineage, it would be improper for you to linger in obscurity at my side. Li Shimin halted, gazing intently at Li Yu. Recalling a tall figure that had lingered in his memory for half a lifetime, his unfortunate third brother, Xian Ba, Li Yuan Ba, whose name was altered to avoid taboo. He had perished young, leaving no offspring. This remains a lifelong regret for me. Li Yu, you possess divine strength and knowledge of the heavenly mysteries. Your character reflects a certain straightforwardness reminiscent of Xian Ba's. Henceforth, I shall adopt you as his heir. Li Yu was momentarily taken aback. To be adopted by Li Xian Ba, the greatest hero of the Sui and Tang dynasties? Was this not a rather rigid elevation in status? He would become the grandnephew of Li Shimin. Li Shimin did not afford Li Yu the opportunity to decline and called out to the door, Wang De, draft an edict. Wang De, who had been eavesdropping outside, rushed in at the summons, clutching a scroll of the decree along with ink and brush. Ever prepared, this is what one might call professionalism. Your Majesty, this old servant is here, Wang De said, wiping the cold sweat from his brow. Reflecting on how swiftly the tide had turned. With a grand gesture, Li Shimin declared, Li Yu, descendant of the Li family, endowed with exceptional talent, closely resembling my brother, the Duke of Wei, Li Xianba. I hereby adopt you as his son, bestowing upon you the title of Duke of Yu. You shall inherit the rank, with a fief of 3,000 households, a reward of 1,000 taels of gold, and be granted residence in the imperial palace. You shall neither bow when meeting the emperor nor hurry when entering the court, and you shall wear your sword into the hall. Duke of Yu? Li Yu pondered the significance of this title. Yu signifies joy and peace. Li Shimin approached, patting Li Yu's shoulder with affection, his eyes brimming with warmth. I hope your life is filled with joy and tranquility, and that you may bring peace to the Tang dynasty. In that moment, the aura of menace in Li Shimin's gaze dissipated, replaced by the earnest hopes of an elder for his junior. Empress Changsun smiled beside them, bowing respectfully. Congratulations, second son, on acquiring a fine nephew. Also, congratulations to the Duke of Yu for returning to the family fold. Li Yu gazed at the illustrious couple of the Tang dynasty, feeling the weight of their trust and expectation. In this unfamiliar era, he was no longer a rootless drifter, nor a condemned prisoner awaiting execution. He had gained an identity, a family, and a sense of belonging. Taking a deep breath, Li Yu summoned his strength to rise, adjusting his somewhat ill-fitting yet clean sweatshirt. With both hands clasped in salute, he bowed deeply to Li Shimin, altering his address. Yes, second uncle. This title was uttered sincerely. Li Shimin erupted in hearty laughter, assisting Li Yu to his feet. Excellent. Good nephew. System prompt. Li Shimin's trust level increased to 85. Heartfelt trust. System prompt. Empress Changsuan's trust level increased to 90, considered as one's own. Reward settlement. Lifespan extended by 15 days. Pain sensitivity diminished. The sensation of illness has once again lessened. Though his body remains weak and frail from the severe illness, the pain has subsided significantly. He is finally able to straighten his back. Li Yu moved his neck a bit, gazed at Li Shimin, and revealed a confident smile. Second uncle, since I have been granted a title and wealth, I cannot accept it without giving something in return. Did you not just inquire about grain seeds and how to construct iron plows? Li Shimin's eyes brightened. Do you have them? Not at the moment. Li Yu pointed at his empty backpack. I have exhausted my resources to embark on any construction and assist you in resolving your troubles. I must return to the modern world. I need to procure supplies. Chapter 15. Will you accompany me back to the modern era? Procure supplies? Li Shimin and Empress Changsun exchanged glances, both astonished by the revelation. In their perception, the celestial realm was a place of divine beings residing in the heavenly palace, filled with auspicious clouds and devoid of earthly concerns. How could Li Yu speak of going there as casually as one would to purchase scallions at the marketplace in Chang'an? Indeed, procure supplies. Li Yu's current state brimmed with vitality, the absence of pain restoring the vigor of his modern self. He sat cross-legged on the soft couch in the side hall, disregarding posture, idly toying with an empty soda bottle as he began to calculate the costs for the two most esteemed figures of the Tang dynasty. Although Anne's condition has stabilized, further medication is required to fortify her health. The current supply will only last a short while. I need to acquire backup medication and nebulization supplies, which are absent in the Tang. Moreover, second uncle, are you not concerned about the future when the populace of the Tang outgrows the land and famine ensues? I intend to bring back divine seeds. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, planted properly. Within 3 years, famine will be eradicated in the Tang. By then, even a doubled population will not pose a threat. Additionally, regarding the city that never sleeps you mentioned, I must also procure some basic power generation equipment to enlighten you. As Li Yu spoke with increasing enthusiasm, he envisioned a Tang dynasty flourishing with potatoes, lights illuminating the Taiji Palace, and Li Shimin commanding legions with a walkie-talkie. Li Shimin felt his blood surge with excitement, rubbing his hands and pacing within the hall, unable to suppress the urge to undertake great endeavors. Go. We must go. I shall instruct the Ministry of Revenue to allocate silver for you. How much do you require? Is 10,000 taels sufficient? 100,000 taels? I will have someone access the national treasury. Silver is not particularly useful. Li Yu shook his head, interrupting Li Shimin's fervor. The world over there does not directly accept silver or copper coins, but I have methods to generate currency. He pointed to the worn yet functioning mechanical watch on his wrist, and then to the few remaining lighters in his backpack. In that realm, these are mere scraps. However, here, they are treasures. This is known as the temporal trade difference. I merely need to bring back a few specialties of the Tang to exchange for a mountain of gold. Specialties? Li Shimin immediately grasped the implication. Unfastening the jade belt from his waist without a second thought, It was the 13-looped belt symbolizing imperial authority. Will this suffice? This is the Hitian warm jade, which I have worn for over a decade, priceless beyond measure. Empress Changsun also removed the golden phoenix hairpin from her head and placed it into Li Yu's hands. Her eyes filled with affection. Wear this as well. Regardless of wealth or poverty, do not deprive yourself. She added, if there are any delicacies over there, treat yourself. Li Yu accepted these two treasures, their weight substantial, radiating warmth. He weighed them in his hands, his brow slightly furrowed. His gaze fell upon the warm white jade ring on Li Shimin's thumb and then shifted to the double fish jade pendant tucked at Empress Changsun's waist. Second uncle, may I have that ring of yours? Aunt, I would also like that jade pendant. Such small items are easy to conceal and sell. Without hesitation, Li Shimin and Empress Changsun unfastened their treasures and handed them over. As long as it could save the future of the Tang dynasty, they would not hesitate to part with even the entirety of the imperial garden. Li Yu, holding these national treasures, nodded in satisfaction. He closed his eyes, connecting with the system. System notification detected ancient artifacts of the Tang royal family. Upon traversal, they will automatically undergo temporal baptism, bestowing upon them 1,400 years of patina and marks of heritage. Authentication result, genuine national treasure level. Li Yu couldn't help but praise the system. Its automatic aging feature was incredibly considerate, directly resolving his greatest concern. Just this one jade belt could fetch millions, enough to empty an entire supermarket. Suddenly, his gaze fell upon a Tang Sankai horse placed in a corner of the side hall. The horse stood about 60 centimeters tall, its form majestic, adorned with yellow, green, and white glazes, its colors shimmering brilliantly, an embodiment of the Tang Sankai that had just begun to flourish. Let us take that as well. Li Yu pointed to the Sankai horse, recognizing it as a hard currency in that era, perfect for impressing Quan Ge. Quan Ge? Li Shimin paused, puzzled. Who is that? A rather interesting merchant who specializes in collecting such treasures, Li Yu explained casually. After arranging the payment, Li Yu carefully wrapped the jade artifacts in cloth and tucked them into his inner pocket. He then looked at Li Shimin and boldly proposed, second uncle, I wish to bring someone along to help with the moving. Would you like to join? Me? Li Shimin's body trembled, pointing to himself, his eyes igniting with unprecedented brilliance. Can I truly go? That is the future. It was the ultimate dream that countless emperors have sought, yet never attained. Now, the opportunity lay before him. With a mere nod, he could traverse time and witness that myth, to behold the world 14 centuries hence. Li Shimin, trembling with excitement, gasped for breath. Instinctively ready to agree. I shall go. Of course. However, as the words reached his lips, he swallowed them back down. The fervor in his gaze gradually cooled, supplanted by the cautiousness befitting an emperor, mingled with a subtle, imperceptible fear. It was an instinctual dread of the unknown. He was the son of heaven, the supreme ruler, the master of the Tang dynasty. Yet in that world, as Li Yu had stated, there were no emperors, no privileges. And one had to abide by the rule of law. What would he be there? An illegal resident? What if this lad turned him in? What if there are taboos in the celestial realm, and should he offend them, how could he possibly return? More importantly, he is a sovereign ruler. With the court in turmoil and the Turks yet to be vanquished, the noble families are watching closely. If he were to suddenly vanish, even for just a few days, the Tang dynasty could descend into chaos. The loyal city of Chang'an cannot function for a moment without its emperor. Li Shimin pondered these thoughts in his heart. He paced the hall, weighing the pros and cons with each step. Finally, he halted, took a deep breath, and forcibly suppressed the yearning within, his gaze becoming both complex and resolute. I shall not go. State affairs are pressing. If I were to leave, the court would surely descend into disorder. He glanced at the frail Empress Changsun, a flicker of tenderness crossing his eyes. Your aunt's health has only just improved. I must remain to protect her. This hall of governance cannot function without me. This was, in truth, both an excuse and a genuine sentiment. Li Yu perceived the truth but chose not to voice it. He understood that for an individual of ancient times, even a revered emperor, the notion of traversing time and space was profoundly unsettling. A measure of caution was indeed warranted. Moreover, if Li Shimin were to truly venture forth, it was uncertain whether he could maintain his composure. Should Li Er proclaim, I am the emperor, on a modern street, he would likely find himself confined to a psychiatric ward. Very well, you may remain at home to oversee matters. Li Yu nodded, but added, I cannot move so many items by myself. You are aware of my current state. I am out of breath after just a few steps. I require a laborer. Li Shimin breathed a sigh of relief, as long as he did not allow him to take risks. Whom do you require? The captain of the Imperial Guard? Or a valiant warrior from the Xuanjiao army? I shall select the strongest for you. How about Yu Qijingda? Or Qingjijia? Li Yu's gaze swept across the hall. Those fierce warriors exuded an intimidating aura, and their fearsome appearance might provoke trouble in the modern era. They could easily attract the attention of special police. Ultimately, his eyes settled on Wang De, who was kneeling on the ground tidying up the ink and brush, trembling since he had heard the word celestial realm. A mischievous smile crept onto Li Yu's face. It shall be him. Old Wang. Chapter 16. The terrified Wang De. Wang De's hand trembled, splattering ink from the edict he had just penned. He looked up in bewilderment, pointing to himself, his voice rising in pitch as if he were a rooster with its neck grasped. Me, an old servant? To the celestial realm? Indeed. You, Li Yu approached, patting Wang De's shoulder as one would inspect livestock. Loyal, reliable, and he squeezed Wang De's somewhat plump yet sturdy arm. After all, years of serving the emperor had endowed him with good strength. You appear capable, for I have many items to procure and require a laborer. Moreover, your fair complexion and gentle demeanor make you less likely to frighten others. And no, I cannot go. I fear heights. I suffer from seasickness. I am but an old man. My frail bones would not survive such a journey. Wangda's face turned pale, and he shrank back in terror, repeatedly bowing his head until the floor echoed with the sound of his knocks. To the celestial realm? The books say one must die to go there. As an ordinary mortal, would he not be struck to ashes by heavenly lightning? Wangda, Li Shimin's voice suddenly resonated with authority. This is an imperial decree. Wangda was momentarily frozen, unable to move, with tears welling in his eyes, feeling as vulnerable as a child weighing over 100 pounds. Li Shimin regarded him with a serious demeanor, yet there was a hint of trust in his voice. The Prince of Yu has only just begun to recover. It is essential that he is attended by someone who understands his needs. You have served me faithfully for 2 decades, and I only trust you. Keep a watchful eye on him. Ensure that no one dares to bully the prince. Moreover, observe the world on my behalf. These words were not only a command, but also a heartfelt request, conveying the regret Li Shimin himself dared not confront, entrusted to this loyal servant. Wangda, recognizing the hopeful gaze of his majesty, understood he could not evade his duty. As the foremost eunuch of the Tang dynasty, his loyalty was ingrained in his very being. With a resolute bite of his lip and a closing of his eyes, he wiped away a tear and bowed deeply, declaring with solemnity, "This old servant obeys. I shall protect His Highness, the Prince of Yu, with my life. Even if it costs me my life, I shall not bring shame upon the Tang." His demeanor was that of one prepared for battle rather than a mere journey. Enough of this melodrama. We are not embarking on a farewell, but rather a procurement mission. Li Yu jested, chuckling as he hoisted his backpack, cramming in jade belts, golden hairpins, jade pendants, and rings, finally asking Wangda to carry the hefty Tang Sankai horse. Grabbing the collar of Wangda's robe, he declared, "Uncle, Aunt, we are off. We shall return within half a day at the quickest, or a full day at the latest. System command. Countdown to transmigration commences. Relax, old Wang." It once he heard a bit, Li Yu ominously reassured, which only heightened Wangda's trepidation. Transmigration countdown, 000005. Are you ready, old Wang? Take a deep breath, and don't soil yourself, Li Yu teased. Wangda had yet to complete his sentence, still preparing to inhale deeply when, buzz. At the moment of transmigration activation, a series of crimson system prompts suddenly flashed before Li Yu's eyes. Detected host carrying a native of the Tang dynasty for transmigration. Triggering time-space dilution effect rules. Rule explanation. Bringing others during transmigration will consume temporal energy. The first round trip with another will place the transmigration ability in a cooldown period. Current cooldown duration, 72 hours. Next cooldown duration for bringing others, 144 hours. Warning, cooldown period increases exponentially with each additional person brought. Use this privilege with caution. Warning, each person may carry a maximum of a 24-inch suitcase of supplies. Exceeding this limit may result in unforeseen risks. What the hell? There's a cooldown? And a limit on supplies? Li Yu was taken aback, but it was too late for regrets. The air twisted violently as the familiar blue and white aura erupted, enveloping the two. Li Shimin and Empress Changsun instinctively squinted as the light faded away. The side hall stood empty, save for a lingering trace of the peculiar fragrance that had accompanied Li Yu, the scent of Head Shoulders shampoo. Li Shimin grasped the hand of Empress Changsun, staring at the vacant hall, rendered speechless for an extended moment. In 2025, within a rented apartment in Xi'an, Li Yu was abruptly jolted from silence by the sound of a violent retch. Wangda lay sprawled upon the floor, retching uncontrollably. Clutched tightly in his hands was a Tang Sankai horse, as if fearing it might be damaged. The disorienting sensation of temporal dislocation he had just experienced was 1,000,000 times more unbearable than the 3 days and nights of jostling in a royal carriage. It felt as though his internal organs had been crushed and reassembled by an unseen force. Enough already, stop vomiting. I can hardly bear to clean this carpet. I bought it for just 9 yuan on Pinduoduo, Li Yu remarked disdainfully, giving Wangda a gentle kick on the backside. After turning on the lights, he sank into the sofa, gasping for breath. Although the system had numbed his sense of pain, the side effects of this transmigration were still overwhelming for him, particularly upon seeing the cooldown notification, which cast a shadow over his mood. He would need to prepare more supplies for the next 3 days. Wangda struggled to lift his head, his face streaked with tears and remnants of vomit, lost in a state of utter bewilderment. In the next moment, he was petrified with shock. What had he just seen? Above him, a round fixture emitted a blinding yet non-burning white light, illuminating the entire room with such clarity that even the dust in the corners was visible. It was 100 times brighter than the luminous pearls of the imperial palace. The walls gleamed as white as jade, the floor smooth as a mirror, and a massive black glass ornament hung against the wall, reflecting his horrified, contorted visage. A peculiar scent permeated the air, not sandalwood, nor the fragrance of cosmetics, but a dry, fruity aroma. Outside the window, despite the curtains drawn, a distant roar could be faintly heard, a roar reminiscent of a colossal beast. Is this the realm of immortals? Wangda trembled, his legs buckling as he knelt once more, bowing before the ceiling light, his forehead thudding against the floor with a resounding thump. Great immortal, spare me. Great immortal, spare me. I am but a mere eunuch. Please do not consume me, for I am not appetizing. Li Yu facepalmed in disbelief. This is quite pathetic. Old Wang, get up, stop kneeling. This isn't an immortal. It's just a light fixture. Didn't my uncle send you here to observe? How can you see anything while kneeling? Glancing at the wall clock, he noted it was 5:30 in the afternoon. Thankfully, it was not yet dark. The modern time was synchronized with that of the Tang dynasty. He moved to the window and swiftly drew back the curtains. Although it was evening, the sun had not fully set. The last rays of the sun bathed the glass facades of the towering buildings in golden light. For someone who had lived in a time where only tiles and wooden structures were visible, this scene was undoubtedly an explosive revelation. Wang De stared blankly at the skyscrapers reaching for the clouds, observing the swiftly darting beetles below, trembling in awe. Stop daydreaming, Li Yu urged, patting his shoulder. He rummaged through the wardrobe and produced an oversized hoodie and sweatpants he had previously bought, tossing them to Wang De. Hide your eunuch garb. It's more conspicuous here than a dragon robe. Tuck your hair into the hood. Remember, once we step outside, no talking, no wandering eyes, stay close to me. Wang De, shaking, changed into the unfamiliar attire, glancing at his reflection in the mirror, feeling as though he had been flayed alive. Li Yu sat on the edge of the bed, skillfully pulling out his phone and opening Douyin. He wished to connect directly with the treasure app, eager to liquidate the items in his possession. Time was of the essence. He required substantial funds to procure necessary materials. However, the moment his finger hovered over the avatar of the app, an icy dread surged from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Chapter 17. Connecting with the app, Li Yu's hand froze in midair. Cold sweat instantly beading on his brow. He suddenly grasped the gravity of a dire and lethal predicament. In this era of big data, one devoid of any semblance of privacy, using his own phone to live stream from his rented room while showcasing these invaluable national treasures would expose his IP address. Facial recognition technology would lock onto him. Even the view from his window could be dissected by viewers scrutinizing the live broadcast, revealing the exact neighborhood and floor of his apartment. What was his current status? A terminally ill cancer patient, a destitute soul with no support. Yet, what did he hold in his hands? The jade belt buckle of Li Shimin, the golden phoenix hairpin of Empress Changsun, and that museum-quality Tang Sankai. Collectively, these items were worth at least several billion. What would he face if exposed? Not merely envious outlaws, but also formidable figures from the gray market, and even certain unspeakable forces. They would descend upon him like sharks sensing blood in the water. At that moment, saving the Tang dynasty would be the least of his concerns. His very life and that of his parents could be irrevocably jeopardized due to a momentary lapse in judgment. Slap. Li Yu struck himself sharply across the face. Li Yu, what were you thinking? It was one thing to dabble in the supernatural in ancient times, but to play such a dangerous game in the modern era? That is courting death. Wang De was startled by the sudden slap. Your Highness? What is this about? Quickly gather your belongings. Li Yu sprang to his feet, his gaze sharpened with unprecedented intensity and alarm. We must leave. Immediately. He hastily wrapped the treasures in layers of newspaper and stuffed them into an inconspicuous woven bag. He ensured his ID and bank card were secure. Old Wang, put on your mask. Pull your hat low. Yes, yes. Though Wang De was unaware of the reason for the urgency, he recognized the gravity of the situation from Li Yu's demeanor. The two rushed out of the rental apartment, even on the 20th floor. Li Yu dared not take the elevator, but instead pulled Wang De down the stairwell. Once outside the complex, Li Yu refrained from hailing a taxi at the entrance, opting instead to walk 2 blocks before finally flagging down a cab driver to the Electronic Commerce City. Quickly, as they sat in the car, Li Yu's heart raced. He needed to establish a secure firewall in the shortest possible time. Upon arriving at the electronic mall, it was already past 6 in the evening, and many shops were beginning to close. Li Yu and Wang De slipped into a concealed, seemingly unregistered mobile repair shop. Boss, I need a second-hand phone that can run the app. Also, a SIM card. One that doesn't require real name registration, just sufficient data will do. The proprietor, a heavily tattooed man, was engrossed in a video game while smoking a cigarette. He glanced up at the two individuals, tightly wrapped and visibly anxious, a glimmer of shrewdness flashing in his eyes. Among the second-hand items was a Redmi K40, its screen marred by a crack. A SIM card was also included. The proprietor exhaled a puff of smoke, his demeanor shifting to one of audacious avarice. 2,000. Although Wang De was unfamiliar with the local currency, he sensed the atmosphere was amiss, instinctively retreating behind Li Yu. Li Yu was acutely aware that this damaged phone and a card were worth, at most, 500. The proprietor was clearly sizing up his prey, ready to fleece the unsuspecting. Very well. Without hesitation, Li Yu extracted a wad of cash from his pocket, money saved for emergencies. He counted out 20 bills and slammed them on the counter. The owner was momentarily taken aback, then broke into a grin. All right, please wait a moment. I'll prepare it for you right away. Grabbing the phone and the card, Li Yu wasted no time, pulling Wang De out of the phone shop. Upon stepping outside, dusk had already settled in. Your Highness, have we been swindled? Wang De, though lacking expertise, could discern that the man's gaze had been untrustworthy. If we have, then so be it. We've paid for our peace of mind. Li Yu replied softly. Now, let us head to the car rental agency. He found a modest establishment that required minimal bureaucratic hassle. Using his driver's license, he rented the most commonplace vehicle, a white BYD Qin Plus ubiquitous on the streets. Why this model? Because it was prevalent in Xi'an, with ride-hailing services predominantly utilizing it. Disguised among the flow of traffic, it would blend in seamlessly, like a droplet merging into the ocean, imperceptible even to the keenest observer. Once inside, Li Yu settled Wang De into the passenger seat and took the driver's position. The electric car hummed to life, emitting only a faint sound of current. Gripping the steering wheel, Li Yu's palms were clammy with sweat. Old Wang, brace yourself. We're heading to a secluded area. The vehicle exited the urban sprawl, merging onto the ring road, and headed northward. Li Yu deliberately chose lesser-known routes devoid of surveillance. Night enveloped the landscape entirely. The city's neon glow was left behind, and the surroundings grew increasingly desolate. After an hour and a half of driving, Li Yu finally stopped the car beside a pitch-black cornfield. This was the wilderness on the northern outskirts of Xi'an, devoid of human presence for miles. Not even a streetlight in sight. Only the rustling of corn leaves in the wind and the occasional distant barking of dogs broke the silence. Your Highness, what are we doing here? Is this a plan for murder and silence? Wang De, peering out at the impenetrable darkness, turned pale, his imagination conjuring a dramatic narrative. Murder? Nonsense. Li Yu shot him a glance, rolled up the windows, and locked the doors. This is for our safety. The items we possess are far too valuable. Should anyone learn of them, it would be worse than death. He retrieved the battered phone purchased for 2,000, inserted the black SIM card, downloaded Douyin, and registered a new account. He named it Descendants of the Tang Dynasty. With everything in place, Li Yu checked the time. It was 9:40 p.m. Taking a deep breath, he clicked on the familiar avatar, listening to the spring and appraising treasures. The live stream was abuzz with activity, boasting an online audience of 100,000. Li Yu did not rush to connect. Instead, he observed for a moment. On the screen, a bespectacled host with a mischievous grin was bantering with a viewer wielding an Ultraman transformation device. Brother, this item is a bit dubious. The synthetic scent permeated through the screen, and I could almost smell it. Enough already. Listening to the host, I hung up the call and executed a tactical retreat. Li Yu seized the moment and clicked on the call request. The queue was extensive. The system indicated 50 people ahead in line. Ah, the business is thriving. Li Yu let out a cold snicker, his fingers dancing swiftly across the screen. But he had no time to wait in line now. He recharged his account and sent a Carnival X1. A magnificent and vibrant carnival effect erupted in the live stream, golden light illuminating the dimly lit compartment. Is this an offering to deities? Wang De huddled in the passenger seat, tightly clutching the Tang Sankai horse. Perhaps, this is the fee for cutting in line. Essentially a toll. In the interim, Li Yu pressed Wang De down. Just stay hidden, hold on to that horse, keep silent, and don't show your face. Wear your mask properly. When I signal you, just do as instructed. Remember, do not utter a word. Wang De, gazing at the glowing square, saw shadows moving on the screen and could hear voices. Paralyzed with fear, he could only nod vigorously. Indeed, in the next moment, the call was connected. Beep. We are connected. On the phone screen appeared a bespectacled host with piercing eyes, set against a backdrop emblazoned with the words listening to Spring's treasure appraisal. The live chat exploded with frenzied comments. The carnival big brother has arrived. The boss is generous. Why is this background so dark? Is this on a car roof? Are we fleeing? I see punishment. Listening to Spring adjusted his glasses and focused on the camera. The screen was enveloped in darkness. Li Yu had not turned on the lights nor revealed his face, merely directing the camera towards the woven bag. Listening to Spring executed a signature tactical lean, a crooked smile gracing his lips, his tone laced with playful understanding. Ah, brother, it seems you are well prepared. He squinted, trying to discern the items on the screen. Brother, this setting is a bit ominous. Where are you? Are you still in the country? Li Yu lowered his voice, deliberately making it sound hoarse, infused with a sense of a desperate outlaw. Host, don't inquire about the location. If you ask, I wouldn't know. Don't ask who I am. I'm merely a passerby. Listening to Spring chuckled, familiar with the lines. Brother, no worries, as long as it's not contraband. My live stream is quite secure. Come on, showcase your talent. If it's fake, I'll have you removed instantly. Li Yu wasted no words. He reached into the woven bag, actually from Wang De's embrace, and retrieved the Tang Sankai horse. Then, he activated the flashlight on his phone. Snap! A beam of intense light struck the horse. In the pitch-black environment, this light appeared particularly blinding, rendering the horse's glaze extraordinarily vibrant. Behold this. Chapter 18. Meeting Brother Spring. This is a quintessential Tang Sankai horse. The horse stands approximately 60 centimeters tall, adorned with yellow, green, and white glazes, each hue exquisite. The green resembles fresh spinach, dripping with vibrancy, exuding a fluid beauty as if it were still gently flowing. The yellow, akin to a ripe pumpkin, warm and substantial. The white, reminiscent of mutton fat, pure and flawless. The glazed surface bears delicate cracks, remnants of time, exquisite as the wings of a cicada. Even more remarkable is its shape. The horse is robust and well-fed, with a rounded hindquarters and a fluid, powerful musculature. Its neck is adorned with neatly trimmed mane. The head slightly bowed, nostrils flaring as if in anticipation of a snort. The distinctive aesthetic of the prosperous Tang dynasty, celebrating fullness and exuding confidence, emanates from the screen. Ting Xuan's eyeglasses glint with a cold light. His previously languid posture suddenly straightens, and he leans almost against the screen. A magnifying glass appearing in his hand as he scrutinizes the image intently. He swiftly plays a battle song, the hauntingly beautiful ancient melody Spring Courtyard Snow. In the garden, the pear blossoms fade another year, as the clear night deepens and moonlight spills upon the steps. Amidst the melancholic background music, Ting Quan gasps in astonishment, his voice rising in pitch. Goodness. He removes his glasses, rubs his eyes, and puts them back on. Brother, this horse, it's extraordinary. The barrage of comments in the live stream erupts. Wow. This glaze. Those cracks. What a revelation. Why does this horse look so new? It can't have just come out of the kiln, right? You don't understand. This is called treasure light. It's the patina of the ages. I'm telling you, this is getting more and more intriguing. Quick, play Tears of the Iron Window. Li Yu remains silent, gently rotating the horse to showcase every detail, including the base beneath its hooves. The more Ting Quan observes, the more alarmed he becomes, his brow furrowing deeply. As an expert, he can discern the intricacies of this artifact at a glance. Nowadays, even the finest replicas cannot shake off that hint of counterfeit allure. And the signs of aging are unmistakable. Yet this horse, its glaze smooth as jade, carries a natural luster that speaks of time's passage. However, the issue lies in its remarkable freshness. This freshness is not that of a newly minted piece, but rather an item that has been impeccably preserved, as if it had just been unearthed from the tomb of a Tang noble. Moreover, the unique pink ceramic body is a hallmark of the Gongyi kiln in Hunan. Brother. Ting Quan swallows hard, taking a sip of water to steady his nerves. Where did you acquire this? It was passed down from my elders, Li Yu replies nonchalantly. Passed down from your elders? Ting Quan sneers, showcasing his classic expression of skepticism. Are your ancestors from the Tang dynasty? I can smell the earthy scent from this horse through the screen. This glaze, this fluidity, these cracks. This is museum quality. Suddenly lowering his voice, Ting Quan adopts a tone of mystery, tinged with fear. Brother, heed my advice. If this is genuine, you are not merely in trouble. You are on the brink of calamity. You aren't alone, are you? The comments in the live stream flood in. The classic lines are here. Ting Quan is about to start his ruse. This must have just been unearthed. This is a true connoisseur. Treasure hunting in the wilderness. Li Yu smiles, though hidden behind his mask, the coldness in his eyes betrays his amusement. Ting Quan, don't frighten me. I only ask you one thing. Are you willing to open the door? Listening to the spring, he took a deep breath and made a signature gesture, clasping his fists and bowing to the camera. Open wide. A glimpse of the grand doorway. If this is fake, I shall eat these glasses. Yet, this item appeared too new, so fresh that it instilled fear within him. It must have either been unearthed just yesterday, or you pilfered it from some museum. Brother, tell me the truth. Are you currently in Hunan? I am in Xi'an, Li replied calmly. Xi'an, he exclaimed, slapping his thigh. That's it. Xi'an is rife with treasures. Our ancestors lie beneath the ground. Brother, if this horse is genuine, it must be worth a fortune. Listening to the spring procured a computer, deftly tapping away. 0.5000000 equals 50 million. He shouted, his voice breaking. 5,000 buns, 10,000 yuan, is merely the starting point. With this quality, at auction, it's in the billion bun category. This is pristine, not even a scratch. But brother, do you dare to sell it? Do you have the paperwork? Li Yu remained silent, placing the horse down. I cannot sell the horse, it's too conspicuous. Look at this instead. He then produced a golden phoenix hairpin from his pocket. The camera focused. It was a gilded phoenix hairpin, crafted from pure gold, embellished with the finest techniques of the Tang dynasty, featuring intricate beadwork and filigree. Thousands of minuscule golden beads were meticulously welded onto the wings, densely packed, yet perfectly arranged, resembling a sky full of stars. The phoenix's eyes were a ruby, with turquoise and pearls adorning its tail feathers. The complexity and exquisiteness of the craftsmanship delivered a stunning blow to modern industrial production lines. Wow! Listening to the spring exclaimed, nearly springing from his chair. His face almost pressed against the camera. Beadwork. All handmade. This craftsmanship, before he could finish, Li Yu revealed one final item, the personal jade belt buckle of Emperor Li Shimin. It was a piece of top-quality Hetian mutton fat white jade, as white as a lump of solidified fat. Carved upon it was a coiled dragon, the scales distinctly visible. The craftsmanship exuding a majestic aura that no ordinary artisan could replicate. This jade left listening to the spring utterly astounded. He removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes, then put them back on, staring intently at the screen as if he could extract the items through the internet. A five-clawed dragon. His voice trembled with excitement upon encountering such a rare treasure, mingled with exhilaration at the prospect of a significant discovery, and a tinge of fear akin to facing a bandit. He took a deep breath, the background music shifting to an intensely suspenseful heartbeat. Brother, do not move. Whatever you do not move. If these three items are genuine, this live stream room cannot contain them. Have you unearthed the tomb of Li Shimin? In the corner, Wang De, upon hearing the words tomb of Li Shimin, shuddered in fright, nearly gasping out loud, quickly covering his mouth, his eyes wide with astonishment. The emperor is not dead yet. How dare he curse the emperor? Li Yu, however, remained unfazed, his gaze icy. Jin Gu, do not jest. I am not selling these items, merely seeking your appraisal. Listening to the spring fell silent for 3 seconds. He discerned that with such attire and this environment, this young man was undoubtedly formidable, and the authenticity of these items was so compelling that it made him question his very existence. The sum of these 3 items amounts to several hundred million. As an antique dealer, he could hardly resist the allure of such top-tier merchandise. Yet, listening to Li Yu's words, he understood that the intent to sell was genuine. Good brother, stay safe, I'll lift you up first. Not long after, Li Yu received a private message on Douyin. Brother, how many are you offering? What is the price? He opened the message and replied to Ting Quan. Tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. at the Xi'an restaurant, diagonally opposite the Bailin District Public Security Bureau, in the Tang private room. Bring cash. Don't bother coming unless you have a 9-figure sum. Ting Xuan's eyes brightened upon reading the message, and he promptly sent an OK emoji in response. Upon seeing Ting Xuan's reply, Li Yu wasted no time, extracting the SIM card from his phone, snapping it in half, and tossing it into the cornfield outside the car window. He then smashed the recently purchased second-hand phone against a rock, shattering the screen, and kicked it into the roadside ditch. Splash. Water sprayed everywhere. Wang De, watching in astonishment, shuddered with concern. Your Highness, that was 2001. Just thrown away? This is a desperate measure for survival, Li Yu replied, brushing off the dust from his hands. His gaze icy. If we don't dispose of it, we will be tracked tonight. Those who desire this batch of goods will swarm us like sharks sensing blood. He restarted the car, turned it around, and drove into the vast night. Let us go, old Wang, back to the city. I'll treat you to a nice meal to calm your nerves. Wang De swallowed hard. What are we eating? Hey Leo, Li Yu smiled, the divine hot pot. The car sped through the night, heading towards the neon-lit district of Xi'an. Chapter 19. The veteran actor the white BYD Cheen plus blended into the traffic. Inconspicuous like a drop of water merging with the ocean. Li Yu was behind the wheel, yet his mood was exceptionally light. At present, he was merely a typical grandson taking his elderly family member into the city for medical care. Your Highness, where are we headed? Wang De, seated in the passenger seat, gripped the woven bag, which contained treasures worth billions, tightly, refusing to place it in the trunk even when Li Yu suggested it. We're going for Hadaleo. Li Yu maneuvered the steering wheel, merging into the luminous flow of the elevated highway. Since they had entered the celestial realm, not indulging in a meal at Hadaleo would be akin to visiting Chang'an without stepping foot in Pingkangfang, an utter waste. Hadaleo? Wang De pondered over the words, envisioning a scene of deities fishing in the depths of the Dragon Palace, instinctively retracting his neck. Your Highness, are we going underwater? What underwater? We're dining out. I'll let you experience what true service is. Half an hour later, the car parked in the underground garage of a large shopping mall. Li Yu, fully equipped, mask, hat, sunglasses, took the elevator straight to the 4th floor. Ding! As the elevator doors opened, a strong, domineering aroma, a blend of beef tallow, chili, and the sweet tangy scent of tomatoes, hit him like a wall. Delicious. Truly delicious. Wang De inhaled deeply, his stomach audibly protesting. This aroma was more enticing than lamb stew simmered all day in the royal kitchen. Welcome to Hadaleo. Before the two individuals could even reach the doorway, two impeccably dressed young ladies approached them with radiant smiles, their enthusiasm surpassing that of courtiers greeting an emperor. Are you dining with us? This way, please. Be careful of the steps. Wang De had never encountered such a reception. In the Tang dynasty, even the female officials from the imperial kitchen would bow their heads in deference upon seeing him. Never had he experienced such unabashed, direct smiles devoid of fear, filled instead with warmth. Startled, he instinctively bent forward, hands clasped within his sleeves, performing a standard courtly gesture, and in a high-pitched voice exclaimed, I wouldn't want to trouble you, young ladies. This old servant can manage on his own. Please, do not stand on ceremony. You honor me too greatly. Upon hearing his words, the two welcoming ladies froze, their expressions a mix of surprise and confusion. Nearby patrons also turned their heads, exchanging bewildered glances. Why is this gentleman speaking so oddly? Old servant. What era is he from? The atmosphere became decidedly awkward. Li Yu inwardly lamented the situation. It seemed old Wang had succumbed to his ingrained habits. In modern society, such behavior would undoubtedly attract unwanted attention. If a video were recorded and circulated online, all their efforts at evasion would be for naught. With a quick thought, he stepped forward, placing an arm around Wang De's shoulder, and offered the staff and onlookers a smile that conveyed both exasperation and affection. I apologize, everyone. My esteemed elder here is a seasoned actor. He just wrapped up a shoot in Hongyan, having played a eunuch in court dramas his entire life. He's just a bit too deep in character and hasn't quite emerged from it yet. He tends to call everyone your majesty at home as well. Li Yu patted Wang De's back and raised his voice deliberately. Teacher Wang, tone it down. We're off stage now. Let us not continue the performance. This is Hadaleo, not the imperial kitchen. Relax. The surrounding individuals suddenly understood. Ah, he is an actor. How dedicated. A true artist. No wonder his gestures are so refined. Look at his posture, that bend, those eyes, remarkable. Which esteemed teacher is this? It's hard to tell with a mask on. The service staff's eyes lit up, quickly adopting a cooperative demeanor, their smiles growing even sweeter and tinged with admiration. Oh, it's Teacher Wang. Thank you for your hard work. Please come in. We'll find you the most comfortable spot. Take your time. Although Wang De did not grasp the meanings of Hongyan or wrapped up, he understood that Li Yu was rescuing him from embarrassment and recognized the goodwill in the gazes around them. Gratefully, he glanced at Li Yu, thinking how clever his highness was to charm these young ladies so effortlessly. The two were escorted to a window-side table. As soon as they sat down, the attentive staff began their attentive ministrations. Teacher Wang, let me bring you a warm towel to freshen your hands. Here is an apron to keep your clothes clean. Your hair is a bit long. May I offer you a hair tie? And here is a phone pouch. Wang De felt utterly stiffened. The demeanor of these attendants was neither fearfully submissive nor sycophantically obsequious due to his status. It was a heartfelt, egalitarian, and even somewhat indulgent enthusiasm, akin to the treatment of one's own elders. What a spectacle this was. Wang De found himself at a loss. Torn between the urge to kneel in gratitude and the fear of doing so, his eyes pleadingly turned towards Li Yu. What on earth were they doing? Li Yu, while placing orders on his tablet, could barely suppress his laughter. Old Wang, just accept it. Here, the customer is akin to a deity. No, more like the supreme deity of the heavens. They are treating you like an emperor. Just think of it as a performance. Graciously accept their service. If you kneel again, it would be disrespectful. Treat an old servant as an emperor. Wang De gasped, nearly sliding off his chair, his face turning ashen. This was tantamount to a death sentence. Absolutely not. All right, enough of the theatrics, or we might ruin the act. Li Yu said as he handed the tablet to the waiter. A Yingyang hot pot, with extra spice and heat. Include beef tripe, duck intestines, and a generous portion of marbled beef, plus a big serving of cabbage and frozen tofu. Oh, and a bottle of Sprite for Teacher Wang. And I'll have a cola. The waiter smiled and retreated. Shortly thereafter, the pot arrived, one side gleaming with a vibrant red chili oil, the other a milky white bone broth. Teacher Wang, here is your Sprite, the waiter said, placing the drink thoughtfully before Wang De. He gazed into the transparent liquid, still bubbling and emitting a hissing sound, resembling some lively creature. Your Highness, is there poison in this water? Why is it bubbling? Could this be the fabled He Ding Hong? Wang De inquired, his expression shifting. Li Yu took a sip of his cola, letting out a loud burp. No poison here. This is a sibling of the happy drink, known as refreshing cool. Give it a try. It's sweet, not a poison. Would I harm you? Wang De, still skeptical, lifted the glass, cautiously licking the rim with his tongue. In an instant, his eyes lit up. Sweet, with a hint of lemony freshness. And the effervescence bursting on his tongue. Unable to resist, he took a hearty gulp. Burp. A resounding belch erupted, almost reaching the heavens. Wang De covered his mouth. His face flushed. This Sprite was indeed bold. It seemed to expel all the murky air from his stomach. Yet, the flavor was delightful. This is called carbonated beverage, Li Yu said, picking up a slice of marbled beef and swirling it in the spicy pot. Come on, old Wang, enjoy the meat. This is beef not commonly savored in the Tang dynasty. In the Tang dynasty, cattle were vital for plowing fields, and slaughtering them was a crime. Aside from the royal family occasionally feasting on the old or sickly cattle, the common folk would never taste beef in their lifetime. Wang De stared at the piece of beef rolling in the crimson oil, a wave of resistance swelling within him. But the overpowering aroma wafting up with the steam was like a hook, tugging at the cravings in his belly, pulling him fiercely. So enticing. The scent, a blend of fat, spices, and the essence of meat, was something he had never encountered in his life. Eat, Li Yu insisted, directly placing the beef into Wang De's bowl. Wang De looked at the slice, still dripping with red oil, swallowed hard, steeled himself, closed his eyes, and picked it up, shoving it into his mouth. As the tender beef entered his mouth, the numbing sensation of Sichuan peppercorns, the fiery heat of chili peppers, and the rich aroma of beef tallow detonated like a bomb within his palate. Wang De's face flushed instantly, beads of sweat cascading down his forehead. Gasping for air, he opened his mouth wide, tears streaming from the spiciness. Water, water. He seized a bottle of Sprite and gulped it down fiercely. The icy coolness of the beverage washed over his fiery esophagus, creating a delightful contrast that left his entire being invigorated. Ecstasy. Wang De, emulating Li Yu, let out a loud exclamation, entirely forgetting the decorum expected of him. Your Highness, what is this flavor? It's incredibly stimulating. 100 times more potent than the pepper from the western regions. Yet, this flavor. He picked up another piece, this time keeping his eyes open, his gaze brimming with fervor. This is what they call spicy and numbing. Li Yu chuckled, offering him a piece of frozen tofu, urging him to try this. Cautioning that while he might be familiar with tofu, this particular variant had absorbed the broth, so he should be careful as it was hot. Wang De took up the piece of tofu, its surface pocked with holes. He had encountered tofu before, even in the Tang dynasty. But this frozen tofu was a novel experience. Delicately, he took a bite. With a pop, the scalding broth erupted from the holes, instantly flooding his mouth with a delightful blend of flavor that was both fragrant and spicy. The inherent bean aroma of the tofu mingled with the rich essence of the broth, yielding a tender, yet slightly resilient texture. Wang De chewed, moved to tears. Unable to suppress his thoughts, the old servant felt he had lived 50 years in vain. This was what true food was, Your Majesty. What you consumed in the palace was mere swill. I am guilty. I dare say this is far more delectable than the imperial banquets. The hot pot feast lasted a full 2 hours. Wang De transitioned from initial restraint and trepidation to a state of utter abandon, relishing every bite. He even learned to roll up his sleeves like Li Yu, resting one foot on the bar, savoring duck intestines with grease dripping from his lips. During the meal, the waitstaff entertained him with face-changing acts and noodle tossing. Watching the masked performer switch faces in an instant and the noodles soar through the air like a white dragon left him awestruck. His applause fervent enough to redden his hands. Bravo! What a splendid display. Wang De instinctively reached for his sleeve to retrieve a silver coin, only to realize he was now a penniless man. Li Yu, smiling, pulled out his phone and scanned to leave a tip. All right, old Wang, are you full now? Full. Absolutely full. Wang De patted his round belly, letting out a lemony burp. Your Highness, this realm is truly marvelous. He gazed at the surrounding diners, engaged in lively conversation, and the waitstaff, whose faces radiated joy. Here, there were no rigid hierarchies, no fear of bowing at a moment's notice. Everyone appeared so at ease. Equality. This word began to take root in the feudal confines of Wang De's mind for the first time, though he did not fully grasp its meaning. He relished this sensation. No one regarded him as a monstrous figure due to his physical imperfections, nor did anyone cast disdainful or fearful glances in his direction. Here, he was simply a respected teacher Wang. If only I could reside here indefinitely. The thought emerged but was swiftly extinguished by Wang De with a firm resolve. He shook his head vigorously, a flicker of fear and determination flashing in his eyes. No, I am but a humble servant to His Majesty. While His Majesty suffers, how could I indulge in pleasures? Such as an act of treason. He recalled the words of Li Shimin before his departure. Observe that world well for me. Yes, not merely to monitor, but to observe. Wang De's gaze deepened once more, embodying the demeanor befitting the head of the Tang dynasty's inner palace. He must document everything here to return and share it with His Majesty. Beyond the novelty of the hot pot, more importantly, he desired to understand what sort of person this Prince of Yu truly is in this world. Is he a blessing or a curse for the Tang dynasty? Upon returning to the rented accommodation, Wang De was once again astonished by the toilet and shower head. With Li Yu's guidance, he finally managed to take a warm bath. After bathing, Li Yu lay on the bed and opened his phone to search for information about the security company. Wang De, clad in a bathrobe, sat upright at a small desk, his expression grave. Might I borrow paper and ink from the esteemed prince? Paper and ink? Li Yu paused. What do you intend to write? I, your humble servant, wish to record today's observations. His Majesty has instructed me to observe and remember the customs of this celestial realm. I fear I might forget, Wang De replied earnestly. Li Yu chuckled. appreciating the diligence of the old eunuch. We have no rice paper or brush, only this. He rummaged through the bedside drawer and produced a black hardcover notebook bought for accounting purposes, along with a carbon pen, tossing them to Wang De. This is a ballpoint pen, no ink grinding required. Just remove the cap and you can write. Will you manage? Wang De carefully accepted the pen, removing the cap and observing the pointed tip, attempting to draw a line on the paper. A clear, fluid black line emerged. What an excellent pen, he exclaimed, marveling at its sharpness and smooth ink flow. If only our Tang dynasty could possess such a marvel, how delightful it would be to transcribe documents. As the head eunuch of the Tang dynasty, Wang De's calligraphy was quite refined. Although his grip on the pen was somewhat awkward, he quickly adapted to the method of writing with this ballpoint pen. Under the desk lamp, he opened the notebook, his demeanor solemn, as if composing an imperial edict. He took his pen and meticulously inscribed on the first page in neat regular script, though using a ballpoint. It retained the essence of calligraphy records of observations from the 8th year of the Jingguan era in the Celestial Realm, recorded by Wang De, Chief of the Inner Palace State, Celestial Year 2025, as mentioned by His Highness, the Prince of Yu. Location, Xi'an Prefecture in the Celestial Realm, i.e. Chang'an. Details. As night fell, I accompanied His Highness, the Prince of Yu, into the Celestial Realm. There is no curfew here. The night is as bright as day, illuminated with lights. The buildings observed are not constructed of wood or stone. They are entirely made of colossal glass, soaring 100 zhang into the clouds, beyond human capability to create. Upon these structures are vibrant, animated paintings of figures, flowers, and birds, appearing lifelike as if they possess souls, mesmerizing all who behold them. The streets are devoid of dust, perfectly smooth, and as black as iron, exceptionally hard. Iron pillars line the roadside, at the tops of which hang miniature suns. Though devoid of oil and fire, they illuminate for miles and do not extinguish in wind or rain. Truly a perpetual divine lamp. The streets feature iron beasts, known as cars, moving without horses at speeds like thunder. Their eyes emit bright beams, their sounds akin to tiger roars, with the capacity to accommodate several people within. Though numerous, these creatures exhibit a remarkable discipline in their movements, adhering strictly to the directives of the traffic lights, halting at the red and proceeding at the green, creating an orderly flow akin to a well-drilled army, leaving one in awe. There exists also a colossal beast, akin to a dragon, which devours countless souls and traverses great distances in an instant. Ordinary mortals, when swallowed, exhibit no fear, treating the experience as commonplace. A testament to the remarkable courage of the local populace. Upon entering a dining establishment named Haidaleo, one is enveloped in a warmth reminiscent of spring, free from the encroachments of cold or heat. The attendants, all strikingly beautiful women and handsome young men, are impeccably dressed, although lacking in luxurious fabrics. Their attire is tailored to perfection. They greet patrons with smiles, revealing 8 pearly teeth, and show utmost respect. Addressing the elderly servant as teacher, displaying no hint of disdain despite the servant's physical imperfections. This embodiment of equality is a sight rarely witnessed, instilling both trepidation and warmth within the elderly servant's heart. In this place, the citizens, regardless of gender, stand tall with rosy complexions, devoid of pallor. Their attire, though unconventional, is worn with poise. They are free from hunger and strife, and not a single beggar is in sight. Instead, vendors call out their wares, and shops line the streets, bustling with a vibrancy that far surpasses that of Chang'an. Dining on hot pot, the red broth bubbles like a cauldron of blood, made entirely of chili peppers. Initially, the aroma is overwhelming. The first bite of meat feels akin to swallowing hot coals, leaving the tongue tingling and sweat beading on the forehead. Yet, once it glides down the throat, it offers an endless aftertaste, akin to the splendor of this celestial realm. Though daunting, it is utterly irresistible. Sipping on Sprite. Served in a transparent crystal glass, it appears colorless yet effervescent, like boiling water without the burn. It enters icy and invigorating, instantly alleviating the heat and awakening the senses, akin to an elixir of life or a variant of divine nectar. Furthermore, the offerings of beef, frozen tofu, and duck intestines are exquisitely fresh and expertly prepared, far surpassing imperial cuisine, leaving the elderly servant feeling as though he has wasted half a century of his life. His Highness, the Prince of Yu, seems but a mere mortal in this celestial realm, devoid of divine powers, yet he navigates this world with the same familiarity as one would with treasured possessions. His actions are decisive, hinting at grand designs. In his grasp lies a black rectangular device capable of transmitting voices across great distances, observing worldly affairs, and facilitating transactions, a true artifact of marvel. The Prince of Yu remarks that in this realm, everyone is educated and well-fed, governed not by emperors but by laws. Though skeptical, it is clear from the demeanor of the locals that they uphold decorum and legality. Even in the absence of official patrols, chaos is absent. This place outshines the grandeur of the Tang dynasty. Chapter 21. Journal of the Prince of Yu. Upon completing his writings, Wang De set down his pen, gently blowing on the still wet ink, though the carbon pen dries swiftly. He closed the notebook reverently and placed it upon the bedside. Your Highness, the old servant has finished. Liu cast a glance, not particularly concerned. Very well, then retire early. Tomorrow we face a formidable challenge. Indeed, Your Highness. Wang De extinguished the lamp, as instructed by Liu, and reclined upon the sofa. Liu scrolled through videos for a while, his eyelids growing heavy. After all, his body had yet to fully recover, and today's exertions had drained him. It wasn't long before even breaths filled the air. In the darkness, Wang De slowly opened his eyes. He strained to listen, confirming that Li Yu had fallen into a deep slumber before rising quietly. Using the neon light filtering through the window, he reopened the notebook. However, instead of revisiting the previous page, he turned to the last few pages, those corners difficult to uncover. He removed the pen cap once more, his gaze transforming into an exceptionally keen one. No longer was he the obsequious old servant, but rather the chief steward of the inner court of the Tang dynasty, the emperor's most trusted eyes and ears. He wrote with remarkable speed, his handwriting becoming increasingly hasty and obscure. Confidential journal of Prince Yu presented, for your majesty's eyes only. Prince Yu has adapted to this realm as if it were his natural habitat, possessing an intimate understanding of its intricacies and maneuvering through them with ease. His speech, demeanor, and mannerisms are indistinguishable from those of the local populace. This serves as proof that he is indeed a denizen of this world, not a vessel for some malevolent spirit. However, his comprehension of the Tang dynasty is not mere rhetoric. He may truly possess insights into the celestial secrets. In this realm, Prince Yu wields no divine power nor authority. He appears to be rather financially constrained, needing to liquidate treasures for currency. Nevertheless, his actions are decisive, his thoughts intricate, and he is exceptionally skilled in the art of disguise, akin to a performer in an elaborate play. While he harbors familial affection towards your majesty, he regards you more as an equal, devoid of reverence. This individual cannot be confronted with force, but rather must be appeased. The egalitarian views held by Prince Yu are a boon to the common folk of this realm, yet a venomous threat to the imperial power of the Tang. Should such notions infiltrate the Tang dynasty, they could undermine the very foundation of the state. Nonetheless, Prince Yu retains a profound affection for the Tang. And despite his verbal grievances, his actions consistently benefit the empire, be it in procuring medicine or seeds. At present, his heart seems pliable and devoid of dissent. The old servant believes that your majesty should bind him with familial ties and entangle him with benefits, never again exerting imperial authority upon him, lest it yield adverse effects. All things in this realm are divine marvels. If they could be introduced to the Tang, the strength of the nation would multiply 100-fold. Yet, Prince Yu speaks of money as the essence of this world, indicating that it is not a land free from vice. The desire for greed resides within all. Having completed the final line, Wang De exhaled slowly. He cast a furtive glance at the slumbering Li Yu on the opposite bed, a complex glimmer in his eyes. Your Highness, do not blame this old servant. Living off your grace and serving the Emperor, I act for the benefit of the Tang, for your majesty. And for your Highness as well. He carefully tore out the pages, folding them into small pieces, and concealed them within the lining of his inner garment. Only after completing this task did he truly lie down and close his eyes. The following morning, Li Yu awoke to hunger. Despite having dined on hot pot the previous night, his metabolism seemed to have accelerated due to his recovery from cancer. He kicked awake the dreaming Wang De, who dreamt of driving to court and colliding with Wei Zheng. Old Wang rose to have breakfast. After washing up, Li Yu took Wang De to a nearby breakfast shop. Boss, 2 bowls of tofu pudding, 2 baskets of meat buns, 2 sticks of fried dough, and 2 tea eggs. Would you like the tofu pudding sweet or savory? The boss called out. Savory. Add extra chili. Li Yu replied. Turning to Wang De, do you prefer it sweet or savory? There are nuances to this dish. Wang De looked bewildered. Tofu pudding? What is that? It's tofu that hasn't tea fully set. Savory, I suppose. Wang De cautiously chose the same flavor as Li Yu. Being a man of the Tang dynasty, he was accustomed to savory fare, and sweet dishes were exceedingly rare, reserved for the nobility. He dared not overstep. Before long, a steaming breakfast was served. A bowl of silken tofu drenched in rich gravy, adorned with yellow soybeans, fresh cilantro, and a drizzle of chili oil trembled delicately. Akin to a flawless jade piece splashed with vibrant ink. Wang De scooped a spoonful and brought it to his lips. Ah, silky, tender, fresh. The texture was simply exquisite, surpassing even the frozen tofu from the previous night. The sensation of it melting in his mouth was reminiscent of swallowing a cloud, as the savory essence of the gravy perfectly complemented the tofu's delicate aroma, with the chili oil serving as the piece de resistance. Is this really tofu? Wang De marveled, whispering, the tofu in the palace is always hard and carries a hint of bitterness. How can this be so delectable? It's a different craft. This is soft tofu. Li Yu replied, taking a bite of a youtiao and suggesting, try this bun. It resembles your steamed bread, but it's filled. In the Tang dynasty, steamed bread indeed had fillings, though it was uncommon, with steamed cakes being more prevalent. Wang De picked up a plump, white meat bun and took a hearty bite. Juices oozed forth, scalding his mouth, yet he couldn't bear to wipe it away. The tender dough melded perfectly with the savory meat filling, offering an utmost indulgence of carbohydrates. Delicious, delicious, Wang De exclaimed, nodding vigorously as he thought. This celestial breakfast is remarkably refined. 100 times better than the steamed cakes from the imperial kitchen. I must ensure the royal chef learns this. The two devoured every morsel on the table with remarkable speed. After the meal, Li Yu wiped his mouth, his expression turning grave. Old Wang, are you full? Indeed. Your Highness, Wang De replied. Now that you are satiated, it is time to attend to serious matters. Li Yu glanced at the time. It was 9 in the morning. We have a challenging endeavor tonight. It won't suffice with just the 2 of us. We need to recruit some assistants. Assistants? Wang De nervously touched the windproof lighter concealed in his sleeve, the only weapon bestowed upon him by Li Yu. Are you planning to mobilize troops, Your Highness? Something along those lines. We need to hire some mercenaries. Li Yu produced his phone, opened a map, and navigated to the highest-rated security company he had discovered the previous night. Thunder Shield Security. Half an hour later, Li Yu and Wang De entered the Thunder Shield security office. They were greeted by a brawny man in a tight-fitting t-shirt, his muscles straining against the fabric. exuding the aura of a veteran with sharp eyes. Good day, gentlemen. What can I assist you with? The muscular man assessed this unusual duo, a young patient dressed in modern attire, albeit with a somewhat ethereal demeanor, and an elderly man in a hoodie, whose peculiar gait and evasive gaze seemed out of place. Liu got straight to the point. I wish to hire personnel. From 7:30 to 9:30 tonight. 2 hours of personal security. The man raised an eyebrow. What is the situation? Is there any danger? Do the other party possess weapons? We do not engage in illegal activities. This is a legitimate business matter, Liu replied calmly, his tone steady. The location is at the Xian restaurant in Bailin District. Directly across from the Public Security Bureau. There will likely be 3 or 4 individuals involved. It's all business. My concern is that if negotiations falter, they may resort to violence. The aim is deterrence, not confrontation. Upon hearing the location near the Public Security Bureau, the muscular man chuckled. Understood. So, you're merely looking to assert presence. Given that position, a brawl is unlikely. He pulled out a price list. Since this was about making a show, it would be calculated on a per capita basis. For ordinary special agents, it was 500 per person per hour. For retired special forces, it was 1,000 per person per hour. How many do you require? Liu contemplated for a moment. He estimated that on the other side, there would likely only be an assistant and an appraiser, at most 3 or 4 individuals. His own side shouldn't appear too shabby, yet it shouldn't be overly extravagant either. Let's have 6, he decided. They should be somewhat intimidating in appearance, robust, and able to instill fear. No need for special forces. Ordinary ones would suffice. But they must obey commands. 6 individuals for 2 hours, which amounts to 6,000. The burly man pressed the calculator, but I'll give you a discount. 5,000. A half upfront deposit is required. 3,000. Liu directly countered, unwavering, stating a fixed price. Just sitting there to intimidate others during a meal, without any physical confrontation. And I'll even treat them to a lavish feast. The burly man was momentarily taken aback, then shook his head, looking at Liu as if he were an amateur. Brother, your bargaining is rather fierce. 3,000 is far too little. It's not easy for us to come out. We also need to don our gear and drive, not to mention the fuel costs. Not too little. Liu pointed outside. I know the current market. You're idle anyway. Wouldn't it be nice to earn some extra cash? Moreover, the location is exceedingly safe, with no risks involved. If you're unwilling to accept, I'll simply turn left and seek out Jean Dunn. 3,000 is truly unfeasible. The burly man gritted his teeth, seemingly making a great concession, declaring at least 4,000, no lower. We are a legitimate company with operational costs to consider. 3,500. The burly man still shook his head, his expression troubled. 4,000, not a penny less, my friend. You must allow us to earn something as well. The two remained locked in a stalemate for a moment, the atmosphere growing quiet. Wangda observed from the side. Though he couldn't comprehend the terms of special agents or operational costs, he understood that His Highness was haggling. Finally, Liu sighed, feigning to walk away. All right. Let us each take a step back. 3,888, for the sake of good fortune. If it works out, splendid. If not, so be it. The burly man glanced at Liu's determined gaze, then at Wangda, who appeared bewildered yet alert. Finally, he smiled helplessly. All right. 3,888. Brother, you know how to conduct business. But let me be clear, the food better be substantial. My brothers have hearty appetites. Rest assured. I guarantee it will be more than enough. Liu readily paid a 2,000 deposit in cash. They arranged to meet at the entrance of the Xian restaurant at 7:30 p.m. What is the leader's name? He is called Brother Hubald, with a tattoo on his neck, easily recognizable. Having secured the Imperial Guard, a weight lifted from Liu's heart. In the following hours, he took Wangda to a shopping mall, purchasing a large pair of sunglasses for him and one for himself as well. Your Highness, what can one see through these dark lenses? Wangda remarked, donning the sunglasses, feeling as though the entire world had darkened, cautious of tripping as he walked. This is called presence. Liu adjusted the sunglasses for him and straightened his hat. With this on, no one can discern your gaze, rendering your thoughts inscrutable. Remember, tonight you are my steward. Regardless of what transpires, you will stand behind me, maintaining a stern expression, silent. Should anyone dare to approach me, you shall throw your cup directly. Wangda tightly clutched the woven bag in his arms, which contained treasures worth billions, and nodded heavily. His gaze revealing a hint of menace through his sunglasses. The old servant obeys. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Liu and Wangda arrived early at the Xian restaurant in Bailin. He did not rush inside but instead led Wangda on a thorough reconnaissance of the surroundings, meticulously assessing the terrain. The restaurant's entrance faced the road, directly across from the Public Security Bureau, where blue and white lights flickered, instilling an overwhelming sense of security. A fire escape on the side of the restaurant led directly to the back alley. Liu walked through it deliberately, confirming the door was unlocked. Should an incident occur, though the likelihood was minimal, this would serve as an escape route. Your Highness, are you strategizing? Wangda observed Liu's meticulous demeanor, reminiscent of Li Shimin surveying the battlefield before a campaign, and felt a surge of admiration. Perhaps, Liu replied. Caution is the mother of safety. At 6 o'clock, Liu entered the restaurant with Wangda. How many gentlemen do we have? A reservation for the Tang private room. Certainly, this way please. The Tang private room, located at the end of the second floor, offered relative seclusion, with windows facing the street, allowing a clear view of the Public Security Bureau's entrance. Upon entering, Liu did not sit immediately, but inspected whether the windows could be opened to observe the police vehicles outside. After confirming everything was in order, he requested the waiter to bring the menu. Please do not serve the dishes yet. I have a friend joining shortly. However, I will place an order for another table first. Liu pointed to a large round table just outside the private room door. For that table, serve hearty dishes, braised pork knuckles, stewed pork with preserved vegetables, a large plate of chicken, and spicy boiled fish. Ensure there's plenty of meat and ample rice. This is for those 6 bodyguards. At 7:30, 6 muscular men in black t-shirts, their faces rugged and intimidating, appeared punctually at the restaurant entrance. The leader, a bald man with a scorpion tattoo on his neck, exuded an aura of danger. Brother Hu, I presume? Liu approached him. You are Boss Li? Brother Hu scrutinized Liu from head to toe. I've brought the men. Where's the money? The final payment will be settled upon completion of the task. Liu indicated the large round table. Gentlemen, you've worked hard. Please take a seat. The dishes will arrive shortly. Your mission is quite simple. Eat heartily and converse loudly, but keep your eyes fixed on the entrance of that private room. He pointed to the Tang private room. If a stranger enters, you need not concern yourselves. However, should you hear the sound of shattered glass, or if I shout catch the thief, Liu's gaze turned icy. You are to rush in and subdue the individuals inside. Can you manage that? Brother Hu glanced at the table laden with sumptuous dishes, then back at Liu, grinning broadly to reveal a mouthful of white teeth. Rest assured, boss. For the sake of your money, we shall act decisively. The moment a glass shatters, regardless of who it is, we will take them down. Good, Liu nodded in satisfaction. With these formidable guardians in place, coupled with the nearby Public Security Bureau, the plan for the evening was secure. He and Wang De entered the private room and closed the door. Liu glanced at the time, 7:45. 15 minutes remain. He mused, taking a seat at the head of the table and pouring himself a cup of tea, savoring a delicate sip. Wang De stood behind him, adorned with sunglasses. His hands crossed over his abdomen, presenting an enigmatic figure reminiscent of an inscrutable underworld steward. The clock read 7:53. The sound of footsteps echoed outside the private room. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Chapter 23. You actually hid the voice recorder here? With a creak, the heavy wooden door swung open. Contrary to expectations of an ominous gangster rendezvous, the atmosphere was infused with a blend of aromas from braised pork knuckles and a faint trace of tobacco, evoking a lively urban ambience. The first to enter was none other than the bespectacled, crooked-smiling internet sensation, Ding Xiangxiu, known in the online realm as Brother Quan. However, he bore no smile at this moment. Clad in an unremarkable black jacket and wearing a mask, his eyes darted around, alert like a cat entering unfamiliar territory. Upon crossing the threshold, he did not regard anyone but swiftly scanned the surroundings of the room. The windows were shut, and the curtains drawn halfway. The table lay bare, save for a pot of tea. Behind him followed 3 individuals, an elderly man with graying hair, dressed in traditional attire, clutching a silver metal case. His murky gaze sharp with wisdom, unmistakably a veteran in the antique trade. A slender young man sporting a backpack and a cap, his eyes quick and shrewd, serving as Brother Quan's assistant and partner. And lastly, a burly man clad in a tight t-shirt, his fierce gaze marking him as the bodyguard. For individuals, a standard configuration. Brother Quan, a pleasure to meet you, Liu remarked from his seat at the head of the table, remaining seated, merely raising a hand slightly. An action as casual as greeting an old friend. He wore a cap pulled low and a black mask obscuring much of his face, revealing only a pair of unervingly calm eyes. Behind him, Wang De sported exaggerated sunglasses, arms crossed in front of him, standing straight. His black athletic hoodie giving off an air of a palace guard's strict demeanor. Although his calves twitched slightly, the sunglasses concealed his taut expression, exuding an inscrutable coldness. Brother Quan removed his mask, revealing a familiar face. His mouth instinctively attempted to curl into a smile, but upon witnessing the formidable aura before him, he restrained it. Brother, you certainly have a discerning taste. This venue is impeccable, right across from the Public Security Bureau. I needed a great deal of courage to come here. How should I address you? Just call me Xiao Li, Liu replied, gesturing toward the chair opposite him. Please, take a seat. Brother Quan remained still. His bodyguard stepped forward, casting a wary glare at Wang De. The atmosphere instantly grew taut, akin to a bowstring drawn tight. Brother Xiao Li, Brother Quan adjusted his glasses. The lenses reflecting light. Since we are here for business, let us speak candidly. Where's the item? Liu smiled, the playful curve of his eyes discernible even behind the mask. The item is here. Do you have the money? The money is in the car. As well as on the card, Brother Quan replied, patting his assistant's backpack. As long as the goods are in order, I can transfer a 9-digit sum on the spot. However, I must see the merchandise first. There's no rush. Liu leisurely lifted the teacup, taking a sip, while Brother Quan, being a man of the trade, understood the protocols. With such a significant breach and such sensitive materials at hand, we must first conduct a security check. Security check? Brother Quan furrowed his brow. Do not take offense, Liu replied, setting down the teacup, his tone turning cold. In this era of advanced technology, I am rather timid, fearful of being recorded or tracked. Thus, he gestured to the revolving tray in the center of the table. I kindly ask everyone to place their mobile phones, smartwatches, Bluetooth earphones, voice recorders, and any other electronic devices on this tray. The bodyguard behind Brother Quan was about to protest, but Quan raised his hand to stop him. He scrutinized Liu for a moment before breaking into a smile. Very well, quite professional. You must have some experience in the field. I admire your vigilance. After speaking, Brother Quan led by example, readily producing 2 mobile phones and placing them on the tray. Everyone, take yours out. He instructed the 3 individuals behind him. The elderly man, the assistant, and the bodyguard exchanged glances and subsequently retrieved their phones and devices. Even the tablet from the silver metal case was brought forth. In no time, the tray resembled a small electronic mountain. Is this all? Brother Quan spread his hands. My friend, may I inspect the goods now? Patience, Liu shook his head, his gaze scanning the individuals like an X-ray, ultimately resting on Wang De. Old Wang, proceed with the search. As I previously instructed you. Liu added in a hushed tone. This was a specific directive from Liu, aimed at identifying any hard, small objects, particularly those that glimmer or have wiring, especially if concealed within the layers of clothing. Wang De felt a shiver run through him. Conducting a search was the responsibility of the Grand Eunuch of the Tang Dynasty, a revered position. Over the years, which foreign envoys seeking an audience with the emperor had not passed through our hands, a profound sense of professional honor welled up within him. Wang De took a deep breath, adjusted his sunglasses, and approached with his characteristic, delicate steps, where his heels barely touched the ground. My apologies, he said in a high-pitched voice, imbued with the softness of a eunuch, sending shivers down the spines of Brother Quan and his companions. He first approached the bodyguard, who wore a disdainful expression and was about to push aside this frail old man. In a flash, Wang De's hand, swift as lightning, brushed lightly against the bodyguard's wrist. The bodyguard felt a sudden weakness in his arm. Steady now, Wang De spoke ominously. Immediately, Wang De's hands began to roam over the bodyguard's body. Those hands, gentle, rapid, and seemingly omnipresent, from the armpits to the waist, from the pant legs to the cuffs, even the soles of the shoes and the seams of the collar were not overlooked. This was akin to a masterful art of examination. Brother Quan and the elderly expert were left in astonishment. The technique was exceedingly professional, more meticulous than airport security, yet devoid of any lewdness, instead carrying a peculiar aesthetic. Before long, Wang De extracted a miniature GPS locator from the inside of the bodyguard's belt, casually tossing it onto the table. The bodyguard's face flushed instantly. Next, he proceeded to the assistant, and finally to Brother Quan. Qiangu raised his hands, an expression of helplessness on his face. Brother, that's enough. I am a law-abiding citizen. Wang De paid him no mind. His bony hand slid down Qianji's ribcage. Suddenly, Wang De's hand halted near Qianji's groin, where he encountered a hard, round object. Qianji's body tensed, his expression shifting dramatically. Hey, sir, you can't touch there. That's dignity. Wang De, peering through his sunglasses, cast a cold glance at him, the corners of his mouth curling into a disdainful smile. Humph. Harboring filth, Wang De's fingers deftly delved into the depths of Qianji's pocket lining, pinching and pulling out a small black cylindrical object the size of a pinky finger. It was a miniature recording pin disguised as a button. Qiangu, keeping this so close, aren't you afraid it'll blow up and leave you childless? Liu inquired, a smirk playing on his lips as he observed the recording pin. Qianji's face instantly flushed a deep shade of pig liver. How embarrassing. He had intended to keep a backup in case of a scam, never anticipating that this old man would possess such skill to uncover even the most clandestine corners. This is a misunderstanding. Qiangu chuckled awkwardly. I forgot it was in my pocket from the last live stream. Really forgot. Old Wang, carry on. Liu chose not to expose him. Chapter 24. Truly, it is real. Wang De again retrieved a spare mobile phone card from beneath Qianji's insole. 10 minutes later, the search concluded. A pile of miscellaneous items lay upon the table. 2 locators, 3 recording pins, and a miniature camera concealed within the assistant's glasses. Qiangu and his companions stood there, feeling as though they had been stripped bare, exchanging glances, cold sweat streaming down their brows. This was hardly selling goods. It was more professional than a spy operation. All right, Liu nodded in satisfaction. It's clean now. Old Wang, serve the food. Yes. Wang De stepped back behind Liu, bending down to carefully lift the Tang Sankai horse from the woven bag with both hands. Thud. With a soft sound, the Sankai horse landed steadily at the center of the dining table's rotating tray. In an instant, the air within the private room seemed to freeze. The awkwardness and irritation that had previously clouded Qiangu and his companions vanished upon seeing the horse, replaced by a tremor that resonated from the depths of their souls. The warm yellow light in the room illuminated the horse, the yellow, green, and white glazes flowing under the light with a luster as gentle as jade. It was not a glaring, thieving light, but rather a treasure's radiance, accumulated over millennia. The horse's head was held high, its mane neatly arranged, muscles defined and powerful, as if it were about to rear up and neigh, shattering the illusions of this fleeting world. The elderly expert, who had been squinting, suddenly opened his eyes wide, a spark of brilliance emanating from them. He instinctively wanted to exclaim in admiration, but the words stuck in his throat. There are rules in every profession. Before a buyer, even upon witnessing a tremendous treasure, one must refrain from loud outbursts, lest it raise the price for the other party. The venerable expert inhaled deeply, forcefully suppressing the elation swelling within him, donning a facade of nonchalance that belied his excitement, though his trembling hands betrayed him. He retrieved a pair of white gloves from his pocket, donning them with the cautious reverence of a youth encountering his first love, and approached the table with measured steps. Brother Quan adjusted his glasses, striving to maintain a semblance of composure behind his crooked smile, yet his Adam's apple betrayed his agitation. It was breathtaking, 100 times more magnificent than viewed through the live stream. Brother Quan regarded Liu, his tone shifting to one of newfound respect. This is remarkable. May we handle it? By all means, Liu gestured graciously. The venerable expert promptly produced a powerful flashlight and a high magnification loupe, leaning almost reverently over the horse figure. Brother Quan leaned in closer. The two men, heads nearly touching, began a silent exchange, their eyes clashing in fervent dialogue. Without uttering a word, the expert pointed to the dripping glaze on the horse's hoof, his fingers illustrating a natural gesture. Brother Quan nodded, then indicated a minuscule crack on the horse's neck, raising an eyebrow, suggesting its authenticity. The expert then gestured toward the pink base clay, his eyes wide with both dread and fervor, his lips moving silently. Gongyi Kiln. Genuine article. The two men were increasingly astonished, their scalps prickling with unease. This horse was so exquisitely perfect that it felt surreal, yet its authenticity instilled a deep-seated fear. The aura it exuded, cold and regal, as if it had slumbered for a millennium in a grand tomb, was beyond the reach of any modern craftsmanship. 5 minutes elapsed. The venerable expert raised his head, beads of sweat dotting his forehead. He looked at Li Yu, silent yet affirmatively nodding, then gestured towards the silver metal case they had brought. The implication was clear, it appeared satisfactory to the naked eye, yet verification by machine was imperative. Master, if the naked eye is insufficient, let us proceed with the machine, Li Yu remarked, pointing at the silver case. I know you have the equipment. Indeed. The expert wasted no time, directly opening the case. Inside lay a portable X-ray fluorescence spectrometer and a high-definition digital microscope. Connect the power. The assistant hurriedly complied. Scan the glaze composition. Observe the microscopic bubbles. As the instruments powered on, the computer screen filled with complex data and microscopic images. The room fell into a silence broken only by the hum of machinery and the breaths of the gathered individuals. 10 minutes passed. Brother Quan and the venerable expert stared at the screen, their faces growing paler as beads of sweat trickled down their cheeks. The screen revealed unique signs of aging in the glaze, all the bubbles having perished and discolored, with countless net-like secondary crystals interspersed within the glaze, physical changes that could only result from the passage of time, spanning at least a millennium. Any chemical aging techniques would be rendered transparent under the microscope, yet this horse remained pristine, pure, and undeniably ancient. Aged to its very core. Suddenly, the expert turned sharply to Li Yu, his gaze imbued with an almost supernatural terror. The voice of the old expert, hoarse and tinged with tremor, conveyed a sense of astonishment. This object has undergone microaging for at least a millennium. Yet, why does its surface gleam so brilliantly? Why is there no trace of soil? Why is there no sign of corrosion? This defies logic. Unless it has been extracted from a vacuum. Brother Quan, too, wore an expression of sheer terror, fully aware of the implications of such a find. If this condition is genuine, it is a remarkable masterpiece freshly unearthed. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Brother Quan felt an unsettling sense of newness about the item. Li Yu reclined in his chair, maintaining an air of tranquility. He understood that the moment had arrived. Is newness not advantageous? It signifies excellent preservation. Li Yu remarked nonchalantly, do not inquire about its origins. Rather, ask yourselves if you dare to acquire it. Exchanging glances with the old expert, Brother Quan said, we need to deliberate. Please, take your time. Li Yu gestured towards a corner of the private room. Instantly, Brother Quan, the old expert, and the assistant huddled together, their backs turned to Li Yu, their voices hushed to whispers. Mr. Ding, Brother Quan, this object is peculiar. The old expert's voice trembled. It truly is a revelation. The composition and microstructure are all perfect. However, its condition is too extraordinary. If this were to be auctioned, forget 200 million, 300 million would be contested. But its origins are questionable. The assistant cautioned softly. Given its pristine state, it must have just been excavated, possibly from a grand tomb. If we acquire it, what if what? Brother Quan gritted his teeth, his eyes gleaming with avarice. For fortune favors the bold. As long as it is authentic, we can maneuver to establish an overseas provenance and launder it for billions in profit. This transaction would suffice for a lifetime. However, there is no however. We must negotiate down, claim that it is too new, raise concerns, and highlight the risks. Brother Quan set the tone resolutely. Once their clandestine discussion concluded, they returned to the table. Brother Quan adopted a pained expression, furrowing his brow. Brother, to be candid, while this item appears ancient, its newness is disconcerting. There is a saying in our field. If something is old yet looks new, it is likely counterfeit. The risk is too great for me to handle. Oh, Li Yu smiled. So? What does Brother Quan propose? This sum, Brother Quan extended 3 fingers, 30 million. This is the highest price I can offer, considering the peril I must bear. 30 million? Li Yu scoffed, shaking his head. Brother Quan, you underestimate my knowledge. He stood, performing an unexpected maneuver. Turning around, he reached into the tattered woven bag once more. Since you find this too new, let me show you some other curiosities. With a flourish, Li Yu produced 2 items, casually tossing them onto the table. With a clang, the sound resonated sharply. Both Brother Quan and the old expert felt their hearts skip a beat. Upon closer inspection, they discovered a jade belt buckle. As white as mutton fat, intricately carved with a 5-clawed dragon, and a resplendent golden hairpin adorned with countless minuscule gold beads. The old expert lunged for the jade buckle. And upon a single glance, his eyes nearly bulged in disbelief. Petian mutton, fat jade, top-tier raw material. This carving, this is exquisite. This is indeed a royal regulation. The 5-clawed dragon. It is used by the emperor. He picked up the golden phoenix hairpin, his hands trembling as if sifting grain. Exquisite pearls. Filigree. This craftsmanship has been lost to time. Is this truly a possession of the empress? The old expert suddenly lifted his gaze, looking at Li Yu as if he were beholding a newly resurrected terracotta warrior. Who exactly are you? Have you plundered the Zhao Mausoleum? At this moment, Quan Ge was no longer merely sweating. He felt a chill creeping down his back, his legs trembling. He glanced at Li Yu, then at Wang De, who had remained silent in the shadows, emanating a foreboding aura. He envisioned a grand drama unfolding. These two are certainly not ordinary tomb raiders. They could be members of a lineage of tomb guardians that has persisted for millennia. Or perhaps, they are the operatives of an international syndicate, skilled enough to breach the royal tomb's core with ease. No wonder they chose to transact at the police station. This is a display of power. Li Yu observed the utterly petrified individuals, a satisfied smirk gracing his lips. This is precisely the effect I desired. Do not panic. Li Yu reached out, reclaiming the jade belt buckle and the golden phoenix hairpin, tucking them back into his pocket. These two items are not for sale. He gestured towards the Tang Sankai horse on the table. Today, I will only sell this horse. Quan Go exhaled deeply, feeling as though he had just traversed the gates of the underworld. As long as it is not an imperial artifact, the risks are significantly reduced. So, regarding the horse, Quan Go tentatively inquired, his tone devoid of the previous bargaining spirit. How does my brother intend to proceed? Li Yu glanced at his watch. This horse, if sold on the black market, would be valued around 80 million. If you manage to establish a proper identity and conduct a significant auction, it could fetch at least 1 or 200 million. Let us speak plainly. Li Yu extended 6 fingers. 60 million. What? Quan Go was taken aback. 60 million? He had anticipated Li Yu would demand a lofty sum of 1 or 200 million, yet he only asked for 60 million? This is practically a gift. This is a price akin to cabbage. Earlier, he had bargained down to 30 million, but his psychological bottom line was 100 million. Do not celebrate too soon. Li Yu interrupted his elation. I have conditions. First, the 60 million must be clean money, transferred directly into my overseas offshore account. A virtual account Li Yu set up on the way, though rudimentary, it suffices in emergencies. It must arrive within 5 minutes. Second, I also require 100,000 in cash, old bills, not in sequence. Third, once the transaction is completed, we shall be square. Whether the horse is genuine or a stolen item, once it leaves this door is no longer my concern, and you shall not inquire about its provenance. Li Yu fixed his gaze on Quan Go, his eyes sharp as blades, pointing to the wall clock. It is now 8:50. The waiter will serve the dishes in 10 minutes. You have only 5 minutes to contemplate. If you agree, transfer the funds and take the item. If not, take your phones and depart. I shall not negotiate further. In 5 minutes, sweat began to bead on Quan Ji's forehead once more. This is a high-stakes gamble. 60 million for a treasure of immeasurable worth, with enormous profit potential. Yet, the risks are equally substantial. The origins of this item are unclear, if it is tainted. However, fortune favors the bold. Qian Gu gazed at the resplendent tricolored horse, his avarice ultimately triumphing over fear. He turned to the elderly expert, who, gritting his teeth, nodded emphatically, conveying through his gaze, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Act now. Qian Gu slammed his hand on the table. Brother, let us not hesitate. 60 million. I will pay. He immediately turned to his assistant and commanded, transfer the funds. Utilize the company's overseas acquisition channel. The assistant, flustered, hastily retrieved his computer and began typing furiously. Time ticked away. At 8:58, a notification chimed on Li Yu's phone. He glanced at it, revealing a message in English, account credited with 480,000 USD, approximately 60 million renminbi. The money had arrived. Li Yu spoke calmly, but his heart raced like a drum. Cash. Qian Gu retrieved 10 stacks of vibrant red bills from the black box carried by his bodyguard and placed them on the table. Brother, this is 1 million. Li Yu gestured for Wang De to collect the money into a woven bag. Wang De stared at the crimson notes, uncertain of the exact amount, yet aware of the substantial thickness, his hands trembling with excitement. All right, the transaction is complete, Li Yu declared as he stood up. The horse is yours. Qian Gu exhaled in relief and promptly instructed his bodyguard to secure the horse in a specialized shockproof case, fearing that any delay might cause Li Yu to reconsider. In that moment, Qian Gu produced another 10 stacks of cash, totaling 1 million, and respectfully pushed them towards Li Yu. Brother, this is 1 million in cash as a token of appreciation. Qian Gu donned a simpering smile, reflecting his respect and flattery towards the top-tier thief. Brother, I know you are a person of great importance, surely backed by a substantial boss. This money is for you and your brothers to enjoy tea. If there are similar items in the future, particularly those two from earlier, the jade belt and the gold hairpin, could you please consider me first? Here is my personal number, available 24/7. He presented a gilded business card, offering it with both hands. Li Yu glanced at him and smiled. This is the way of the world. As long as you possess strength, others will treat you with reverence. He casually accepted the card and the money, tossing them to Wang De. All right, seeing how accommodating you are, I will contact you first next time I acquire something good. Ah, thank you, brother. Thank you. Qian Gu bowed and nodded. Let us go. With the items secured, Qian Gu was eager to leave. Not wanting to linger in a location so close to the police station, feeling a sense of unease, the four of them hurriedly exited the private room, clutching the box as if they were thieves, swiftly disappearing down the corridor. Inside the room, only Li Yu and Wang De remained. Your Highness, Wang De, holding the woven bag brimming with cash, felt his legs weaken and plopped down onto the ground. Is this the military funding we acquired? Indeed. This is merely the first installment, Li Yu reassured him, patting Wang De's shoulder. Chapter 26. Grain varieties. The following morning, the air in Xi'an still carried a hint of coolness. Li Yu and Wang De stood at the entrance of Xi'an's largest agricultural wholesale market. Having just received tens of millions the previous day, they had become overnight millionaires, yet they exhibited none of the ostentation often associated with sudden wealth. Instead, they appeared somewhat furtive. Wang De's eyes, concealed behind sunglasses, surveyed this still unfamiliar world with both curiosity and trepidation. Your Highness, what brings us to this vegetable market? He inquired, observing the bustling trucks laden with produce and the pervasive scent of earth and decaying greens. He felt a sense of bewilderment, even a hint of disdain. Weren't they supposed to be procuring an iron bull? The iron bull was too cumbersome to transport, and moreover, it consumed fuel, something they lacked, rendering it mere scrap metal. Today, however, they sought something far more significant, something pivotal to the destiny of the Tang dynasty. Li Yu skillfully navigated through the noisy vegetable wholesale district, indifferent to the mud splashing onto his shoes, making a beeline for the seed specialty area. Old Wang, what do you think the Tang dynasty is most lacking at present? Li Yu queried as they walked. Is it money, horses, or weaponry? Wang De ventured, believing these to be the crux of national affairs. Wrong, Li Yu replied, halting at the entrance of a large store adorned with a sign proclaiming high-quality seeds. He gestured towards the mountain of woven sacks stacked inside. What is lacking is grain. Money cannot be consumed, horses cannot be gnawed upon, and weaponry cannot be turned into sustenance. Only grain can sustain life and prevent chaos in the Tang dynasty. As long as the common people have rice in their bowls, disorder shall not prevail. A full stomach brings a settled heart. Upon entering the shop, they encountered a middle-aged proprietor still enjoying his breakfast, a fried dough stick in hand. Noticing the customers, he hastily placed it down and wiped the oil from his mouth. Good sir, I wish to purchase some seeds, Li Yu announced. What would you like? We have wheat, corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and vegetable seeds. Take your pick. The proprietor warmly welcomed them. I intend to bring them back to my hometown, which is impoverished and lacks fertile soil, fertilizers, and pesticides, purely natural and unpolluted. Li Yu stated earnestly, articulating a highly specialized request that he had diligently studied the previous night. I am not seeking the extreme yields from chemically induced crops. I require varieties that are resilient to poor soil, robust against pests and diseases, and exhibit slow degeneration when replanted. I need crops that can be sown generation after generation in the mountains, understand? Ideally, they should be hardy enough to thrive with minimal care. Upon hearing this, the proprietor's eyes sparkled with excitement. Ah, connoisseur. Nowadays, everyone opts for hybrid seeds, while they yield high. They are delicate and necessitate yearly purchases. One season and they are done. You are advocating for sustainable development, are you not? Indeed, even if the yield is slightly lower. Stability is paramount, Li Yu affirmed with a nod. Then you have come to the right place, the proprietor beamed, proudly pointing to a pile of sacks at the entrance. As if introducing his own children. This potato, the Phyretia virus-free microtuber, may be small, but it is a pure strain. Its disease resistance is unparalleled, and its vitality is extraordinary. If you cultivate it, you will yield first-generation quality seeds that can be propagated for several years. Although it may not match the extraordinary production of today's genetically modified potatoes, in typical soil, it can yield about 5,000 pounds per acre. 5,000 pounds. Wang De, who had been standing behind Li Yu trying to blend into the background, suddenly emitted a sharp, startled cry, reminiscent of a rooster being throttled, startling the proprietor. He rushed forward, clutching the bag of potato seeds tightly, his eyes wide with disbelief and his breath quickening. Sir, please do not mock this old servant's ignorance of agriculture. 5,000 pounds per acre. Do you not realize that the crime of deceiving the emperor warrants execution? In the illustrious Tang dynasty, the finest arable land was diligently tended, and during favorable weather, the yield of millet and wheat per mu reached a mere 3 to 4 stones, approximately 300 to 400 gene. 5,000 gene. That would require multiple harvests. The proprietor was taken aback by the eccentric old man wearing sunglasses and a mask, yet he patiently explained, Sir, I assure you, I am not deceiving you. Do you not understand the modern age of scientific agriculture? This 5,000 gene is a conservative estimate, should the irrigation be adequate. Yields of 6 to 7,000 gene are not merely a dream. And what about this? Wang De trembled, pointing at the sweet potatoes nearby. Sweet potatoes? I can provide you with seedlings, complete with roots and soil. They thrive easily. The proprietor casually remarked. This is the newly cultivated commercial variety, Shanshu 19. High in starch and drought resistant. It is a veritable gem of sweet potatoes, simply planted in the soil, and it can yield 3 to 4,000 gene per mu, possibly exceeding 5,000 gene during peak production. Hearing this, Wang De felt his legs weaken, as if he could no longer stand. What about corn? Li Yu pressed on. The Zhongdan 808 variety, an old breed, resistant to lodging and poor soil. Crucially, it is suitable for seed retention. Although it does not yield as much as modern hybrids, it can still produce nearly 2,000 gene in hilly terrain. 2,000 gene, 2,000 gene. Wang De could no longer bear the weight of this revelation. With a thud, he sank to his knees on the concrete floor, producing a muffled sound. Your Highness. Wang De clung desperately to Li Yu's leg, weeping uncontrollably, his tears and mucus quickly saturating his mask, even causing his sunglasses to slip, revealing eyes that were both red and filled with fervor and devotion. Your Highness, we must purchase this. This is no mere seed. It is life itself. It is the lifeblood of countless subjects in the Tang dynasty. With this, the people shall never suffer from hunger again. The emperor will no longer have to worry his hair to gray over a meager supply of grain. Buy as much as possible. I beseech you. Even if it means selling myself, I implore you to buy. Oblivious to the gazes of those around him, he cried like a distraught child. He had witnessed the great drought of the early Jingguan era, seen the horrors of cannibalism, and encountered the sight of starving corpses lining the roads. He had witnessed Li Shimin, the emperor himself, graying in worry before leading the entire royal court and ministers to Luoyang in search of sustenance. And now, the lifeline was before him. No. This was not just a lifeline. It was a divine seed from the celestial realm. The surrounding customers and the proprietor stood in stunned silence, pondering whether this old man had suffered some trauma or disaster at home. The proprietor gazed at Li Yu, bewildered. What has happened to this gentleman? Has he been reminded of his days of hunger? Li Yu felt a pang of sorrow. This was the ancient reverence for food, a sentiment that modern individuals could scarcely comprehend, a hunger that etched itself into the very bones. He firmly lifted Wang De to his feet, dusting off his knees, and spoke earnestly. Old Wang, cease your tears. We shall buy, without a doubt. Our purpose here is for this. Proprietor, I want these potatoes, sweet potatoes, and corn. And not just these. Chapter 27. Obsession. Liu turned to his employer and remarked, in addition to these 3 items, I also require conventional rice seeds that can produce offspring, a bit more high-yield wheat, and most importantly, he pointed towards the corner where the yellow soybeans were. I desire the finest quality of soybeans. Soybeans. The boss paused, taken aback. That crop doesn't yield much. Even if the yield is low, I still want them. Liu's gaze was resolute. The people of the Great Tang were in dire need of protein. They appeared emaciated, with swollen bodies afflicted by malnutrition. With soybeans, they could produce tofu and soy milk. These would serve as the meat for the impoverished. Ultimately, Liu placed a significant order, 2 small bundles of sweet potato seedlings. Roots intact and wrapped in damp cloth. 2 bags of miniature potatoes, no larger than quail eggs, yet they were the most vigorous original seeds. 2 bags of corn seeds. Plump and golden. 2 bags of hybrid rice. 2 bags of high-yield wheat. And 4 bags of soybean seeds, for they were in great demand and needed in abundance. Each bag weighed approximately 2 kilograms, totaling around 14 bags, alongside the sweet potato seedlings, amounting to roughly 60 to 70 pounds. Liu then urged Wang De to procure the fruits of the sweet potatoes, and corn. After completing the purchases, Liu pushed a small cart laden with seeds, with Wang De carefully guarding it, his expression more anxious than if he were safeguarding an imperial edict. The two returned to the vehicle. Liu opened the trunk and retrieved Wang De's 24-inch black suitcase. Old Wang, space is limited in this suitcase. We must make some choices. Liu pointed to the modern clothing and toiletries previously purchased, declaring, these garments take up too much space and are overly bulky. We must discard them. All of them. Before Liu could finish his sentence, Wang De dashed forward as if possessed, yanking out the hoodies and sweatpants that he had clung to just the night before, discarding them into the trunk with fervor. Your Highness, these rags are utterly useless. They cannot nourish or save lives. What purpose do they serve? Wang De's eyes glistened with emotion as he continued to throw items away, exclaiming, I desire nothing. I will not wear these garments. I do not want these shoes. Even if I return bare, I must bring back this fortune. Even if we take 1 fewer seed, that could mean a life lost. Liu stood momentarily speechless. He gazed at the scattered clothes in the trunk, then at Wang De's face, distorted with fervor. At that moment, this frail, often submissive old eunuch appeared majestic. He was not merely a servant. He was a citizen of the Great Tang, a person who had experienced hunger and understood that food was more precious than life itself. He recognized that this suitcase filled with seeds outweighed even his own existence. Very well, I will heed your counsel. Liu inhaled deeply, his expression solemn. Wang De meticulously arranged the seed packages into the suitcase with great care, as if constructing a wall. The miniature potatoes formed the base, while corn, wheat, rice, and soybeans were placed in the middle, and the sweet potato seedlings were laid gently on top to avoid damage. The few pounds of sample sweet potatoes, and corn were cautiously set alongside the sweet potato seedlings, as if they were offerings to a deity. With a click, the suitcase closed. Observing the stuffed black suitcase, Wang De managed to force a smile that was more painful than tears. Your Highness, how heavy is this suitcase? Approximately 60 to 70 pounds, I suppose. Liu attempted to lift the suitcase, finding it neither excessively heavy nor particularly light for an adult. I can manage it, Wang De declared, gripping the handle with a determination as unyielding as iron, his forearms taut with effort. This suitcase shall remain in my possession from this moment forth. No one shall take it from me. Even if my hand is severed, I shall not relinquish it. From that instant onward, Wang De's hand never strayed from the suitcase's handle, as if it were his very lifeline. Whether walking, riding, or even visiting the restroom, he ensured the suitcase remained in sight at all times. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Liu drove Wang De to a Walmart supermarket. Wang De clutched the suitcase, filled with seeds, with one hand, insisting on bringing it inside despite the security's objections, nearly resulting in a quarrel, while maneuvering a shopping cart with the other. His posture appeared awkward, yet his gaze was sharply vigilant, watching for anyone who might attempt to seize his precious seeds. Old Wang, relax. No one here will steal your treasures, Liu reassured him, consulting his phone's notes as they navigated the aisles. They first arrived at the book section, where Liu casually selected 2 richly illustrated modern editions of the exploitation of the works of nature and essential techniques for the peasants, tossing them into the cart. These are manuals for the industrialization and agricultural advancement of the Tang dynasty. You must study them diligently upon our return. As they passed through the spice section, Liu's eyes sparkled with excitement. Hot pot base, beef tallow, clear oil, tomato, mushroom broth. Let us take one of each. The culinary offerings of the Tang were rather bland, primarily consisting of boiling or roasting methods, with seasonings limited to vinegar, soy sauce, and a meager sprinkle of pepper. As a modern palate, he found this intolerable. Chili powder, extra hot, medium hot, mild, all of them. 13 spices, cumin powder, black pepper, chicken essence, star anise packets, oyster sauce, light and dark soy sauce. Wang De observed the vibrant array of bottles and jars in the cart, still safeguarding the suitcase with one hand, while his eyes hungrily followed the spices. Your Highness, that chili powder looks intimidating, but it does smell delightful. Indeed, it is a fine treasure. Should you wish to enjoy hot pot in the future, these will be essential. Upon reaching the pharmaceutical section, Liu's expression grew serious. 5 boxes of antihypertensive medication, nifedipine. He examined the expiration date on the box. I have read historical accounts. My second uncle suffered from dizziness and irritability in his later years. likely due to high blood pressure. This medication could save his life. When he receives it, he shall surely be moved to tears. He also selected liquid calcium and vitamin D for Qingqian. His leg may be afflicted, but a calcium deficiency could be contributing as well. A supplement may alleviate some of his suffering. He then gathered common medications, ibuprofen, amoxicillin, montmorillonite powder, and Yunnan Baiyao. Additionally, he picked up several exquisitely packaged skincare products, Miracle Water Cream, for his aunt. The winds of the Tang dynasty are harsh. This will bring her joy for years to come. What woman does not cherish beauty? Even a queen. Arriving at the toy section, Li Yu began to choose gifts for his younger siblings, whom he had yet to meet. A Rubik's Cube for Li Tai. The lad is clever, but this will keep him occupied for days, diverting his thoughts from the struggle for the throne. A globe. This is a must-have. The high-definition version. For Li Ku. He must understand the vastness of the world beyond the confines of Chang'an. Go forth and conquer the stars and seas, young man. Lego bricks for Li Ji. Cultivating practical skills to become a master craftsman in the future. A set of 24 watercolor pens for the little one, who delights in painting. A delicate music box for Li Lizzie, for a princess must be cherished. Additionally, several children's picture books for the other princes and princesses, ensuring equitable distribution. Finally, in the food section, Li Yu embarked on another shopping spree. A bag of white rabbit milk candies, which the little one will surely adore. 3 packs of Wei Long spicy strips, allowing the people of Tang to experience the bold flavors of industry. 5 packs of instant noodles, a nighttime essential. A pack of ham sausages, the perfect companion for noodles. Of course, one must not overlook the most vital energy source, 2 miniature solar charging panels, which generate electricity whenever there is light, truly remarkable. 2 oversized power banks, 20,000 mAh, already fully charged. A Bluetooth speaker, to later play a rock rendition of Qin Wang Pai Zhen Yu for Lier, shaking him to his core. The shopping cart overflowed. At checkout, everything was bagged. The two returned to Li Yu's rented apartment, laden with packages. Chapter 28. A great accomplishment. It had been a full 2 days and nights since they departed from the Tang dynasty. Time was of the essence. Li Yu piled all the items in the living room, commencing the final frenzy of packing. Old Wang, come help me unpack. To save space, he discarded all cardboard boxes. Retained only the inner bags of hot pot base, the aluminum foil of the medicine, dismantled the Rubik's Cube box, and poured the Lego directly into a bag. Li Yu's 24-inch suitcase was stuffed to the brim, the zipper barely closing. Every inch of space was utilized for seasonings, medications, toys, skincare products, and electronics. Wangda's box filled with seeds was regarded as a treasure, and Li Yu even stuffed a few old clothes into the gaps for cushioning. At last, Li Yu picked up the jade belt and the golden phoenix hairpin. Initially intended for sale, he ultimately decided against it, having sold only the 3-colored horse. After some contemplation, he fastened the jade belt around his waist. This item belonged to his second uncle. Selling it would be inappropriate. Returning it would reflect well on his character. He then took the golden phoenix hairpin, glanced at Wangda's unkempt hair, previously uncombed for disguise, and with a mischievous grin said, "Old Wang, this hairpin has no place to rest. I'll borrow your hair for a moment." With that, he casually inserted the priceless golden hairpin into Wangda's gray-streaked hair. There. It was done. Li Yu donned a heavy hiking backpack filled with personal belongings and snacks, pulling along the suitcase brimming with technological gadgets. Wangda clutched the seed box's handle tightly with one hand, while holding a woven bag filled with cash in the other. "Your Highness, the car hasn't been returned yet," Wangda reminded. "Oh, right, the car." Li Yu instructed Wangda to keep watch while he drove the BYD Qin to the rental agency, returned the vehicle, completed the paperwork, and took a taxi back. As evening approached, the setting sun streamed through the window of the apartment, casting its glow upon the 2 boxes of treasures. Li Yu glanced at his watch. 1753. System command. Time travel initiated. Time travel countdown. 000059. Are you ready, Old Wang? Li Yu grasped the suitcase with one hand and held Wangda's arm with the other. Wangda clutched the handle of the password box, his face illuminated with a radiant fervor akin to that of a pilgrim. "Ready, Your Highness. Let us proceed." The countdown reached its conclusion. Buzz. The blue and white light instantaneously enveloped the cramped rental apartment. 2 figures, along with their 2 24-inch suitcases, vanished into thin air. In the 8th year of the Jingguan era of the Tang dynasty, within the side hall of the Lizing Hall, Li Shimin found the passage of these 2 days and nights to be interminable. Apart from attending court, he remained glued to the side hall. Seated beside the spot where Li Yu had disappeared, gripping a scroll of books that had remained untouched for ages, Empress Changsun was recovering swiftly, adhering to Li Yu's prescribed regimen of medication, and by this morning, she had completely ceased her coughing. Sitting beside Li Shimin, she engaged in needlework, her demeanor calm, yet her eyes concealed a profound worry. "Erlang, have some tea," Empress Changsun gently suggested. "Yuer is a capable child, and with Wangda accompanying him, he will be safe." "I know," Li Shimin replied, setting down his book with a sigh. "It is just that my heart feels so empty. Do you think that world is truly as wonderful as they say? Will Yuer return?" "He will," Empress Changsun stated resolutely. "The Li family has always kept their promises. He risked his life to save me. How could he not return?" As the two engaged in their private conversation, an abrupt buzz filled the air, accompanied by a violent tremor. Li Shimin sprang to his feet, his chair toppling over. "They have come." A flash of light surged forth. 2 disheveled figures, along with 2 enormous suitcases, crashed onto the floor with a thud. It was the sound of Wangda's box hitting the ground. Even as he knelt unsteadily, he clutched the suitcase's handle with unwavering determination. Li Yu stumbled slightly but quickly regained his composure, the jade belt at his waist glinting under the refracted light. "We're back." Li Yu exclaimed, tearing off his mask and inhaling the fresh air of the Tang dynasty. Where? Wangda, Li Shimin, and Empress Changsun rushed forward. Disregarding all decorum, Li Shimin swiftly helped Li Yu to his feet, scrutinizing him closely, relieved to see the jade belt still intact. It is good that you have returned. It is good. Empress Changsun, however, looked heartbroken at the disarray around them, as well as at the peculiar attire of the two. No, it's nothing. Li Yu waved his hand, a weary yet radiant smile gracing his face. He gestured towards Wangda, who was still kneeling on the ground, murmuring yet refusing to release his grip on the suitcase. Second uncle, quickly, go and check on old Wang. He has achieved great merit. That suitcase is filled with precious cargo. Li Shimin turned his gaze to Wangda, who knelt protectively over the suitcase, resembling a hen safeguarding her chicks. Upon hearing the emperor's footsteps, he laboriously lifted his head. His sunglasses askew, hair disheveled, adorned with a golden phoenix hairpin, he appeared both comical and absurd. His face was smeared with sweat and dust, yet his eyes sparkled with a fearful brightness, brimming with tears. Your Majesty, Wangda spoke with a quivering voice. This old servant has successfully brought back the celestial seeds. He pointed to the suitcase beside him, his fingers trembling. Inside are potatoes yielding 5,000 pounds per acre, sweet potatoes yielding 4,000 pounds, and corn, wheat, rice, soybeans. These are the finest seeds from the celestial realm, specially selected by His Highness, capable of being passed down through generations. Your Majesty, there shall be no more famine in the great Tang. Upon uttering these words, the loyal old eunuch could no longer contain himself, bursting into tears while clutching the box. As he wept, he grew faint with happiness and unexpectedly fainted. Li Shimin stood in astonishment. 5,000 jin per mo. He gazed at the ordinary black box, as if he beheld a mountain of gold, more precious than gold itself. It represented granaries, the lives of countless commoners, and the enduring legacy of the great Tang. Trembling, Li Shimin reached out to touch the box, yet hesitated, fearing he might damage the divine treasures within. Good servant, good nephew. He abruptly turned to Li Yu, his eyes ablaze with fervor. Is this what you referred to as the goods? Li Yu smiled. Second uncle, allow me to introduce them to you in detail. Chapter 29, Obligations of the Time Traveler, Part 1. A few young eunuchs, flustered and cautious, hurriedly carried Wangda away, with the palace doors closed. The empty Xingzheng hall flickered with candlelight, leaving only 3 individuals, Li Shimin, Empress Changsun, and Li Yu. Taking a deep breath to suppress his dizziness, Li Yu refrained from opening the box immediately, and instead presented 2 items. Second uncle, aunt, Li Yu offered with both hands. I have returned, fulfilling my duty. And these 2 items are restored to their rightful place. One was a white jade belt, stained with sweat, its surface warm and glowing in the firelight. A piece that Li Shimin cherished dearly. Beside it lay a resplendent phoenix-headed hairpin, a token from the empress's wedding, bearing witness to the journey of the emperor and empress from the humble Qinhuang mansion to their current exalted status. Li Shimin had mentally prepared himself for these items to be pawned for resources. He took the jade belt, not rushing to fasten it around his waist, but instead, his calloused hands gently traced the familiar patterns, his brow furrowing in confusion as he looked at Li Yu. Where? Did I not instruct you to sell these for money to procure supplies? Why have you brought them back? Li Shimin asked solemnly. Is it because those people do not recognize their worth? If funds are insufficient, I still possess treasures from previous dynasties in the private treasury. It is not a matter of money. Second uncle, Li Yu interrupted with a gentle shake of his head, smiling. I sold that tricolored horse over there. The funds will suffice for a while. At this, Li Yu's smile faded, and he gazed earnestly at the emperor and empress. I had intended to sell all together for more goods. Yet, at the moment of parting, I hesitated upon seeing the jade belt and the hairpin. I thought to myself, this jade belt has adorned second uncle's waist for over a decade, imbued with its own spirit, and this hairpin is aunt's cherished possession, a memento of the wedding. Money can be earned again, and if we lack supplies, we shall find ways to manage. But if these sentimental items were to fall into others' hands, they would leave a lingering regret in the hearts of second uncle and aunt. Li Yu paused, his voice resonating in the vast hall. We are family. I pondered, since the tricolored horse suffices for trade, it is best that these 2 items return to their rightful owners. This is also my selfish desire, to let second uncle and aunt know that our family is more precious than gold. His words, though simple, shattered the hard shell surrounding the hearts of Li Shimin and Empress Changsun. In the days preceding this moment, although a collaborative bond had been established, the insidious nature of suspicion and testing lingered like an invisible barrier among the 3 individuals. At this instant, that barrier was shattered by Li Yu's earnest display of familial affection. Li Shimin's hand trembled slightly as he gazed at the jade belt in his possession, then turned his attention to the young man before him. A good child, he uttered, his voice hoarse yet laden with profound significance. He solemnly placed the jade belt upon the imperial desk. It transcended its status as a mere object, transforming into a testament of trust and affection. The scrutiny in his eyes towards Li Yu softened, replaced by genuine warmth and confidence. Empress Changsun received the golden hairpin, suppressing her tears, though unable to conceal her deep emotion. Her gaze did not linger on the pin, but rather roamed over Li Yu, as if she were surveying a wayward child returning home, her eyes brimming with tenderness, almost capable of drawing forth tears. She instinctively reached out to smooth the disheveled collar of his garment. Returning is a blessing. You have endured much these past few days. Material possessions pale in comparison to a single strand of your hair. My dear child, if funds are insufficient, so be it. We could sell this hall without a second thought. We are family. Such trivial matters should not weigh heavily upon us. Li Yu's heart warmed at the palpable humanity of the Tang royal family, which was the very reason for his return. Dear aunt, your words are too grave. For the sake of the Tang and our family, this minor hardship is nothing. He smiled softly, the atmosphere charged with emotion, before pivoting towards the two silver suitcases. Uncle, let us reminisce later. First, let us examine what can truly bolster the strength of the Tang. As he crouched down, his fingers deftly maneuvered the combination lock. Let us uncover something that will enable the Tang to stand tall. With a crisp click, the metallic sound resonated throughout the hall. Li Yu lifted the lid of the suitcase, revealing a meticulously arranged collection of seed packets. Li Shimin approached, his previously tranquil demeanor shifting as he beheld the contents within the case, his brows arching slightly. While he did not recognize the bags, he was well acquainted with the treasures they held, seeds. These are the grains you mentioned that can yield 1,000 jin per mu? His voice remained steady, though an unrecognized tremor crept into its cadence. Li Yu first picked up two packets that appeared to be the most ordinary of seeds, presenting one to Li Shimin and the other to Empress Changsun. Let us begin with these two, wheat and rice. These are the staple foods most familiar to the people of the Tang, resembling the seeds of today, yet embodying the distinction between our ancestors and the divine. Rather than hastily presenting data, he turned to Li Shimin. Uncle, currently in the fields of Guangzhou, under favorable weather conditions, how much can 1 mu of millet yield? Without hesitation, Li Shimin responded, the figures etched in his mind. A source of daily concern is emperor. In the fields, it yields no more than 3 sure, approximately 300 jin. In years of drought or locust plagues, it is not uncommon to harvest nothing at all. During times of calamity, I can only watch as the common folk are forced to sell their children, becoming displaced, while the wealthy families seize the opportunity to absorb land. But these two divine seeds, once planted, require no special methods. Their robust genetics alone can triple the yield, easily achieving 900 or even 1,000 jin. Triple the yield? There is no need to alter the dietary habits of the common folk, nor to mobilize the cultivation of barren lands. Simply by changing the seeds, the granaries of the Tang dynasty could expand threefold in situ. What does this imply? It suggests a doubling of the national treasury's revenues, enabling Li Shimin to support a greater army and construct more roads. Li Yu, without granting him much respite, seized a bag of plump golden beans, soybeans. Beans. Such fare is typically consumed by the impoverished and is known to cause bloating. Li Shimin furrowed his brow, clearly skeptical of the strategic significance of beans. Cousin, these beans are not the same as those you envision. In later times, they are referred to as the meat that grows in the fields. Li Yu spoke earnestly, entering a mode of enlightenment. They contain a remarkably precious substance known as protein. You may not be familiar with this term, but to put it simply, its nutritional value is second only to that of meat. Consuming these can enhance strength and build muscle, yielding effects comparable to eating mutton. Li Yu fixed his gaze upon Li Shimin's eyes. Can the soldiers of the Tang dynasty afford to eat mutton daily? Certainly not. However, if they were to consume tofu, drink soy milk, and eat dried tofu daily, that is within reach. If the Tang army could partake of this plant-based meat at every meal, would their physiques not rival those of the robust Turks who feast on meat daily? Li Shimin's expression transformed in an instant. His gaze upon the bag of beans shifted from viewing it as the food of the lower class to perceiving it as a vision of an invincible iron army, each soldier brawny and powerful. Gripping the bag tightly, he mused, if this can be widely promoted, what concerns could I have for my 16 guards? Next, he turned to the sweet potato. Li Yu presented a red, spindle-shaped tuber to Empress Changsun. Aunt, please feel its weight. This is known as sweet potato, or yam. It is the finest supplementary grain. Supplementary grain? Empress Changsun remarked, feeling its substantial heft. Indeed, it possesses a delightful flavor, is soft and palatable, adored by both the elderly and children. Most importantly, it grows in any soil, whether in muddy fields, hilly terrain, or sandy soil. It can thrive with merely a vine planted. Its yield is astonishing, often yielding 2,000 to 3,000 pounds per acre. In years of disaster, when staple grains fail, this tuber can survive buried underground, serving as the last line of defense against starvation for the populace. Finally, Li Yu held up a potato and a golden ear of corn, his expression turning grave. As for these two, they are strategic dominators. Li Yu extended the earthy potato to Li Shimin. This is called potato, or malinger. In later times, it is revered as a miraculous solution to famine. Li Yu nodded, extending 3 fingers. This potato is resistant to cold, drought, and poor soil. It can be cultivated in sandy areas, on slopes, and even in newly reclaimed barren lands. With proper care, it can yield a starting harvest of 3,000 pounds per acre in the lands of the Tang. Most importantly, it can serve as a staple food. Li Shimin stood there, cradling the potato, his thoughts racing. The burgeoning potential was not merely in sustenance, but in the very strength of the Tang dynasty. 3,000 pounds. Li Shimin murmured, then suddenly raised his head, speaking rapidly. Does this mean it can be cultivated in Daizhou, Yunzhou, and even in the frigid northern territories? Li Yu was momentarily taken aback, then praised inwardly. Indeed, potatoes thrive in cooler climates, flourishing even better in the north. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Li Shimin repeatedly uttered 3 words of approval as he paced anxiously within the grand hall, his robes billowing with the breeze. If this were indeed true, it would signify more than mere military provisions. He gazed at the ethereal map before him, envisioning the vast expanse of the Tang Empire stretching infinitely. Firstly, I could implement a system of agricultural settlement in the northern territories. In past campaigns against the Turks, transporting 10 stones of grain to the front lines often resulted in the loss of 7 or 8 stones along the way. Should I cultivate this miraculous crop along the borders, my supply routes would be secure. At that time, my iron cavalry could advance all the way to the Han Sea. reaching the very heart of the Turks. The demise of the northern steppes is not far off. Secondly, Li Shimin turned, his gaze piercing as it fell upon Empress Changsan. Do you comprehend the implications of this? Why do the 5 surnames and 7 families wield such influence over the court? Because they possess land and grain. In times of disaster, they hoard resources, compelling the court to concede and forcing the populace into servitude. If the court held these miraculous resources, I could suppress grain prices entirely. No matter how vast their granaries, could they rival this heavenly gift? With it, the common folk would have ample provisions, understanding propriety. With it, the displaced would have food and would not rebel. With it, my authority would be truly fortified. My subjects of the Tang would no longer suffer from famine. This is the vision of a timeless emperor.